Chapter 539. Dragon Lady was stunned. Then she blushed as if she was on fire. She had seen people who were unromantic, but she had never seen someone so unromantic. Dragon Lady knew that Iguchin was a sword and martial arts maniac. He didn't care about romantic relationships at all. However, a woman of such noble status and flawless appearance like her was like a delicate and beautiful flower in front of him. She was actually able to remain indifferent. In fact, the Dragon Lady had misunderstood Yi Guchen's intentions. At this moment, even with Dragon Lady's temper, she wanted to bite Yi Guchen. What's wrong? Seeing Dragon Lady gnashing her teeth, Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly. He seemed to have angered Dragon Lady. But where did he go wrong? Yi Guchen might never understand. Nothing. Then come. Dragon Lady snorted and didn't say anything else. She did need Yi Guchen's soaring snake totem to help her transform. Next, Yi Guchen activated the soaring snake totem in his body. Dragon Lady guided him carefully. After all, this was related to her totem's transformation. As time passed, Dragon Lady's serene blue serpent totem was affected by the ancestral totem. It was as if it was about to awaken. The surging water-type totem power boiled in the totem. Dragon Lady took out some water-type divine items again to refine. In the blink of an eye, a night had passed. Yi Guchen's face showed a hint of fatigue. Activating the ancestral totem for the entire night was quite taxing on Yi Guchen. As for the dragoness, although she hadn't changed much from before, she still looked the same. However, the pair of crystal jade horns on her forehead had grown a lot. Her skin became even more translucent and translucent. She opened her eyes slightly. Her blue pupils were as clear as ocean blue crystals, containing light. I did it. Dragon Lady released her own totem. The serene blue serpent totem transformed into the Seven Seas serpent. Although the Seven Seas serpent totem hadn't reached the level of the ancestral totem, it was already one of the top supreme totems. It was much stronger than the serene blue serpent. At the same time, because of the totem's transformation, Dragon Lady's water dragon bloodline was activated. Her current strength was almost 5 times greater than before. Dragoness even had the confidence to compete with the Triple Crown King. Thank you very much, the Dragon Lady said sincerely to Yi Guchen. It could be said that Yi Guchen had helped her too much. It's fine. Alright, what exactly is the door of the ancient god? Yi Guchen suddenly remembered and asked. Dragoness heard this and her expression turned serious. The ancient god door is located inside the 5 Elements Temple, Dragon Lady said. Rumor has it that it is a small space. It is the place where the ancestors fell and left their legacies. Not only are there legacies from the ancestors, but there are also some totem legacies, divine weapons, treasures, and even sacred medicines. As expected, Yi Guchen's eyes shone brightly. Lotus Flower Village's Longyuan village chief once said that the 5 Elements Temple might have a sacred medicine. He didn't expect it to be inside the door of the ancient god. Not only sacred medicine, but the so-called ancestors' relics and bloodline were probably related to the ancient god too. These were all what Yi Guchen needed. I need to enter the door of the ancient god. Yi Guchen didn't beat around the bush and said firmly. Dragoness smiled bitterly and said, I knew you would have such a plan. Luckily, there is a chance to enter the door of the ancient god, but you might have to go to the Mulan clan. But Yi Guchen asked. That's because only the 2 barbarian families are qualified to let their juniors enter the door of the ancient god. Every time the door of the ancient god opens, the 2 families will not only recruit their own holy sons and holy daughters, but also recruit some powerful holy sons and holy sons to join their camps. For example, Lei Jiuyo, Golden Sun Saint, and the others will join the Tuoba clan and enter the door of the ancient god under Tuoba Shang's lead. The top saints and saintesses of the Water Tribe and the Wood Tribe might join the Mulan clan and be led by Mulan Yu. However, because of Tuoba Shang, the Mulan clan might be in danger during the door of the ancient god this time. Dragoness glanced at Yi Guchen as she spoke. Of course, if you join the Mulan clan, the outcome might be different. Yi Guchen nodded slightly. It was obviously impossible for him to join the Tuoba clan. Therefore, the only choice was the Mulan clan. The door of the ancient god is about to open. Now that my strength has increased, the Mulan clan will probably take a fancy to me and enter the door of the ancient god with Mulanyu. I will also bring you along, Dragoness said. She would naturally do her best to fulfill her promise to Yiguchen. Thank you. Yiguchen cupped his hands. At the same time, his eyes shone with determination. No one could stop him from obtaining the sacred medicine in the door of the ancient god. If anyone stood in his way, he would kill God. If Buddha stood in his way, he would kill Buddha. Oh right, if you have time, find Shui Ruo. I will also transform her totem into the supreme totem. Yiguchen suddenly thought. He had a good impression of Shui Ruo. He did not mind helping her. What a lucky girl to have gained your favor. Dragoness said. A few days later, Dragoness also found Shui Ruo. However, Yiguchen did not openly help Shui Ruo transform her totem because it would expose the existence of the primogenitor totem. It was only after Dragoness drugged Shui Ruo that Yiguchen activated the primogenitor totem. In the end, Shui Ruo's totem was also upgraded to the supreme totem. Of course, the power of transformation could not be used without restraint. After helping Dragoness and Shui Ruo, Yiguchen felt that the tongue snake totem seemed to be lacking. Dragoness also found many water-type divine items to help Yiguchen make up for it. A few days later, Shui Ruo suddenly found that her totem had transformed into the supreme totem. She was so excited that she could not speak. Of course, Dragoness and Yiguchen did not tell Shui Ruo the truth. Shui Ruo thought that Long Nu had used some kind of rare treasure to transform her totem. However, she was also grateful to Yiguchen. If it were not for Yiguchen, Dragoness would not value her so much. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. Yiguchen, let's go to the Muron family. Dragoness said. Okay. Yiguchen nodded slightly. He would only be qualified to enter the door of the ancient god if he was recognized by the Muron family. Of course, Dragoness and Yiguchen were not the only ones from the water tribe going this time. The Stormy Wave Saint Sun, Cloud River Saint Sun and the others would also go. Even Shui Ruo had become the saintess because she had transformed into the supreme totem. She was qualified to go to the Muron family. Of course, going to the Muron family did not mean that one would be recognized by the Muron family and enter the door of the ancient god. The two families had a limited number of spots to enter the door of the ancient god. Excluding the prodigies in the family, each family only had about 10 spots. Although there were not many saints in the barbarian tribe, there were still quite a few of them. There were so many saints, yet they could only fight for a mere 10 spots. The competition would definitely be extremely intense. However, Yiguchen did not have a trace of fear. He only had a strong belief to obtain the sacred elixir and save Su Jianshi. No one would be able to stop him. If there was, he would crush them. Chapter 540. A few days later, at the edge of Yunmeng Lake, a blue airship sat on the ground. Dragon Lady Yiguchen, Divine Eagle, Shui Ruo, and the others all boarded the airship. Then, Turbulent Wave Saint Sun, Yunhe Saint Sun, and the others boarded the airship as well. I hope you can enter the door of ancient god. If you can get the inheritance of our ancestors' bloodline, the water tribe will rise again, Yulong Elder said. But he was just saying it. The water tribe's Saint Sun was weaker than the gold tribe, fire tribe, and thunder tribe. Dragon Lady didn't spread the news about her totem transformation. She wanted to shock the Mulan family and get the chance to enter the door of ancient god. But Yulong Elder glanced at Yiguchen. If he didn't have any expectations for the other water tribe saints, then this Triple Crown champion who defeated Tuoba Lai would have a good chance. But it's a pity that he's not a pure water tribe member. Yulong Elder sighed. Yiguchen was born and raised in the water tribe. The entire water tribe would try their best to invest all their resources on Yiguchen. Although Yiguchen was Dragon Lady's husband, he didn't have a close relationship with the water tribe. After that, the flying boat that carried the aquatics rose into the sky as the totem power surged. It flew toward the Muron clan's residence. Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo stayed by Yiguchen's side along the way. Looking at the two beauties, one on Yiguchen's left and one on Yiguchen's right, The stormy wave Saint Sun's face was incomparably cold, with a hint of jealousy. But he didn't have the courage to provoke Yiguchin. His only hope was that the Tuoba family could teach him a lesson. This Duguubai has offended Tuoba Lai. Even if he can enter the door of the ancient gods, he will be targeted by the Tuoba family. Let's see how he will deal with it. No matter how strong he is, can he be stronger than Tuoba Shang? The stormy wave Saint Child's face was gloomy as he sat at the back, thinking. Yiguchin didn't know what the stormy wave Saint Sun was thinking, and even if he did, he wouldn't care. There was almost no one among the younger generation of the barbarian race who could compete with him. About a day later, the flying boat had also completely entered the land of 5 elements. The encampments of the Tuoba family and the Mulan family were located in the depths of the land of 5 elements. It wasn't too far away from the 5 elements temple. After all, the 2 barbarian families had a place in the 5 elements temple's elder council. They could be considered as branches of the 5 elements temple. One day later, Yiguchin saw an endless mountain range in the distance. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth lingered like mist, and there were many buildings scattered around. Vaguely, Yiguchin also sensed the subtle fluctuations of the array. It was obvious that the Mulan family's encampment also had a protective array. The flying boat carried the group of people from the water tribe and landed on an open space outside the mountain range. At that moment, the open space was filled with a group of people. Most of them were the saints of various races. Many of the saints and saintesses were surprised when they saw the people from the water tribe. They had heard that Tuoba Lai went to the water tribe to ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. However, the final result made everyone's jaws drop. Tuoba Lai was actually rebuffed. Yiguchin and the others alighted from the flying boat and stood where they were. Many people's eyes fell on Yiguchin. With the dragon girl beside him, they naturally knew who this ordinary-looking young man was. This must be the Triple Crown champion, Duguubai, who caused a stir in the barbarian race recently. A strange girl with green hair walked out from the crowd. Even her pupils were emerald green in color. That's the Wood Tribe's saintess, the Wooden Bell Spirit, the dragon girl said quietly. Yiguchin nodded slightly as a greeting. The Wood Tribe was similar to the Water Tribe. They were gentle and peaceful and had a good relationship with each other. Are you sure he's the one who defeated Tuoba Lai? It doesn't look like it. A muscular man with a naked upper body, muscles like iron, and a king mark on his forehead questioned. Perhaps Tuoba Lai has an undeserved reputation. After all, he doesn't have any impressive battle records. Another muscular man said playfully. His chin and neck were covered with white fur like a lion's mane. Yiguchin frowned slightly as he looked at the 2 muscular men. They are the lion and tiger saints of the barbarian tribe. One of them is called the White Lion Saint and the other is the Black Tiger Saint. Both of them are very strong, but the barbarian tribe doesn't have a good relationship with our water tribe. Dragon Girl looked at the 2 men with disgust. Before she had her current strength, she was often ridiculed by the 2 men. However, as they were all in the Mulan family's camp, she didn't want to fall out with them. However, it was different now. With Yiguchin and the Dragon Girl's strength, she was no match for him. Facing the Lion and Tiger Saints, she didn't have any fear. I wonder if your water tribe can get a slot to enter the door of the ancient god this time? Or will you leave with your tail between your legs like before? The Lion and Tiger Saints didn't hide their disdain. They knew their strength and knew that the Mulan family would try their best to rope them in, so they weren't afraid of offending the Dragon Girl. The Stormy Wave Saint and the others looked terrible, but they didn't dare to refute. They hid like turtles. The Lion and Tiger Saints looked even more disdainful when they saw this. Lion and Tiger Saints, that's enough. We don't know who will get a slot this time. Dragon Girl was angry when she saw the cowardly look of the Stormy Wave Saint and the others. Do you think you're confident now that you have a husband? The Lion and Tiger Saint sneered. Yiguchin looked at the Lion and Tiger Saints indifferently and didn't say a word. However, the Lion and Tiger Saints felt a chill run down their spines, as if they were being stared at by some dangerous existence. This brat. The 2 of them looked at each other and felt that Yiguchin was indeed not a simple person. At this moment, A figure walked over from the mountain range not far away. It was an elder of the Mulan family. "Greetings, elder." All the saints and saintesses present cupped their fists and greeted him. The elder of the Mulan family had an extraordinary status. "Well, almost everyone is here. Let's go to the test site," the elder of the Mulan family said indifferently. "The test site?" Yi Guchen was confused. "It's not that easy for the Mulan family to choose people. They need to go through 3 tests to be recognized," Dragon Girl explained. "I see," Yi Guchen said. He believed that this test wouldn't be a problem for him. Not long after, Yi Guchen and the others arrived at the test site under the guidance of the elder of the Mulan family. There were already many members of the Mulan family at the test site. Yi Guchen looked around and saw some familiar faces. Needless to say, Mu Lanxiu was among them. There was also Mu Lanyue, a beautiful girl in a colorful dress with an exotic charm, who was also in the crowd. As the leader of the team entering the door of the ancient god, Mu Lanyue was naturally very attentive to the test. However, Mu Lanyue's mind was still wandering at the moment. It's a pity that the 5-crown king disappeared after the battle in the ancient desolation arena. If I could rope him in, I wouldn't be so worried now. Mu Lanyue couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 541. Only those who witnessed it personally knew how powerful Quintuple Crown King was. Even the invincible Quintuple Crown King, Tuoba Shang, was insignificant in the face of such an existence. It could be said that the battle in the ancient desolate arena had shaken Mu Lanyue. If she could rope in the real Quintuple Crown King, she wouldn't have to worry about dealing with Tuoba Shang. Mu Lanyue was most worried that Tuoba Shang would obtain the bloodline inheritance after entering the door of the ancient god. At that time, he would truly obtain the recognition of the 5 Elements Temple. The Tuoba family would also completely control the will of the 5 Elements Temple. As for the Mu Lanyue family, needless to say, they would be fiercely suppressed by the Tuoba family. This wasn't something Mu Lanyue wanted to see. However, it was a pity that after the desolate ancient arena, 5 crown kings seemed to have disappeared without a trace. There was no more news about him. Even if Mu Lanyue wanted to find him, she was powerless. Sigh. Mu Lanyue deeply sighed. "Sister Yu, that's the Triple Crown King who defeated Tuoba Lai. His name is Duguubai and he's now the husband of the Dragon Lady," Murangxiu said. Mu Lanyue's mind was spinning and she still hadn't recovered from her shock. "Sister Yu?" Murangxiu reminded. "Oh, it's him." Mu Lanyue regained her senses and glanced at Yi Guchen. Although the Triple Crown King wasn't weak, Tuoba Lai wasn't the only Triple Crown King in the Tuoba family. Moreover, Mu Lanyue heard that the Tuoba family seemed to have recruited many powerful saints and saintesses. There were also Triple Crown Kings among them. Therefore, although Yi Guchen's appearance surprised Mu Lanyue, it wasn't enough to determine her victory. Murangxiu bitterly smiled. It seemed that Mu Lanyue didn't value this Triple Crown King too much. "Everyone, I'm Mu Lanyue, the saintess of the Mu Lanyue family. I'll lead you into the door of the ancient god to seize the opportunity." However, not everyone can enter the door of the ancient god. Apart from the disciples of the Mu Lanyue family, there are only 10 spots. Therefore, only the most powerful saints and saintesses are qualified to enter with us. Mu Lanyue said when she saw that almost everyone had arrived. "Saintess Mulan, don't worry. With us, the Lion and Tiger Saints, this time's gate of the ancient god's operation is in the bag." The White Lion Holy Sun and the Black Tiger Holy Sun seemed to be very confident as they laughed loudly. Mu Lanyue nodded slightly. She knew the strength of the Lion and Tiger Saints. Although these 2 saints only had 1 supreme totem each, it was the most powerful supreme totem of all. One was the golden-eyed White Lion, and the other was the Heavenly Devil Tiger. Both were extremely powerful totems. It could be said that the 2 of them were not much weaker than the Triple Crown champion. What was even rarer was that the 2 saints were able to cooperate seamlessly. They were even able to perform a joint attack. That kind of power even shocked Mu Lanyue. She believed that even Tuoba Shang would not be able to completely ignore the Lion and Tiger Saints' attacks. The lion and tiger saints seemed to have noticed the importance on Mu Lanyue's face. They looked at Dragoness, Yiguchen, and the others with mocking gazes. They didn't hide their provocation. We'll teach them a lesson later. Dragoness looked unfriendly. Yiguchen didn't care and waited quietly. Next, there will be 3 major tests. Everyone follow me. Mu Lanyue said and walked directly into the mountain range. All the Chosens followed closely behind him. Not long after, Yiguchen saw a 3-foot-tall stone gate in an open space. The stone gate was engraved with various barbarian tribe totems and ancient characters. Dragoness's expression changed slightly. Why is it this? What is this? Yiguchen asked in a low voice. Dragoness looked at Yiguchen with concern. This is the bloodline gate unique to the barbarian tribe. It can sense the barbarian tribe's bloodline. According to the purity of the bloodline, the light it emits will be different. From low to high, there are 7 types of light: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. If it's an outsider, it won't shine, Dragoness said in a low voice. Yiguchen frowned slightly. He wasn't a barbarian. If he entered the bloodline gate, he wouldn't shine. If that was the case, it would be a big problem. Not to mention whether he could be valued by the Mulan family and enter the door of the ancient god. Even if he could leave safely, it would be a problem. But when he thought that this was his only chance to enter the door of the ancient god, Yiguchen's eyes flashed with determination. Yiguchen had always been calm and collected. He rarely acted impulsively. But sometimes he knew he shouldn't do it, but he still did it. Because this was his only chance. And Yiguchen was betting that he wouldn't be exposed. Are you sure you want to participate? Dragoness leaned closer to Yiguchen and whispered. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Dragoness sighed. She was already thinking about how to deal with Yiguchen if his identity as an outsider was exposed. The first test wasn't difficult for the other saints and saintesses. It was nothing more than a test of bloodline. Generally speaking, the higher the bloodline, the stronger the strength and the higher the talent. The first saint began to enter the bloodline gate. Immediately, the bloodline gate emitted a ball of yellow light. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The red light was the lowest, and the purple light was the highest. The yellow light was below average. The saint's face darkened. Seeing this, Mu Lanyue's face was also calm. If the bloodline purity wasn't high, it meant that there was no value in cultivating it. If the Mulan family brought these saints in and let them seize opportunities, they might be of help to the Mulan family in the future. If their talent wasn't high, they wouldn't achieve much in the future. This kind of person had a low chance of being recognized. Then came the second and third saints. But most of them only emitted yellow light. The one with the best bloodline only emitted green light, which was only average. This caused the complexions of Mu Lanyue and the elders of the Mulan family to turn ugly. Are those with the highest bloodline purity in the Gold Clan, Fire Clan, and Thunder Clan? Some elders of the Mulan family were upset. It's our turn. At this moment, a heroic voice sounded. The White Lion Saint and Black Tiger Saint of the barbarians stepped forward at the same time. The surrounding saints and saintesses all looked at them. Even Mu Lanyue, who didn't look too good, was excited. She looked at the lion and tiger saints with anticipation. If one were to ask who Mu Lanyue relied on the most, it would undoubtedly be the lion and tiger saints. As for the dragoness, although she wasn't bad, the news of her totem's transformation hadn't spread, so Mu Lanyue didn't know. The lion and tiger saints seemed to be very confident in the bloodline gate's test. They stepped in one after another. The bloodline gate lit up with a rich green light. There was even a hint of blue in the green light. High-grade pure bloodline. The surrounding holy sons all exclaimed in surprise, their eyes filled with astonishment. Good. Some elders of the Mulan family couldn't help but exclaim. A faint smile finally appeared on Mu Lanyue's calm face. The green light represented the superior bloodline of the lion and tiger saints. It even had a hint of blue. Blue was an extremely pure bloodline. Mu Lanyue's bloodline could only make the bloodline gate emit blue light. This meant that the bloodline of the lion and tiger saints was close to Mu Lanyue's. However, the lion and tiger saints weren't surprised by this result. Their eyes immediately fell on the dragoness and the others of the water clan. Ha! The purity of our bloodline is only SOSO. How can it compare to the water clans? Don't you think so? As soon as he said this, many eyes fell on the dragoness and the others. Chapter 542. The barbarians and the aquatics had some conflicts before. Therefore, they had always been at odds with each other. However, the aquatics had a mix of good and bad in this generation. Apart from the Dragon Lady, there were no other young powerhouses. Previously, the aquatics had an internal conflict. The battle between the Sunflower Inji and the Dragon Lady had caused the deaths of some saints and saintesses. It had also weakened the younger generation of the aquatics. Therefore, apart from the Dragon Lady, the aquatics only had the Stormy Wave Saint and a few other powerhouses left. They could not do much. Not to mention famous prodigies like Lei Juyo and the Golden Sun Saint. The Lion and Tiger Saints had targeted the aquatics because they wanted to see them lose face. The Lion and Tiger Saints knew a little about the Dragon Lady. Although she was not bad, she was definitely not as good as them. As for the Stormy Wave Saint and the others, the Lion and Tiger Saints did not think highly of them. As for Yi Guchen, his rise was too short. Previously, he had only defeated Tuoba Lai in one battle. Therefore, his true strength was still questioned. Seeing that the aquatics were being targeted, the other saints and saintesses also looked over. Mu Lanyue's beautiful eyes also turned to the Dragon Lady and Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's aura had always been hidden, so Mu Lanyue did not sense much of it. However, the Dragon Lady made Mu Lanyue feel that there was something different. However, Mu Lanyue did not have much hope. After all, she knew a little about the Dragon Lady's strength. Next, under the deliberate targeting of the Lion and Tiger Saints, the aquatics had no choice but to step forward. The first to be tested were the saints. The Yunha Saint was the first to step into the bloodline door. The bloodline door released a yellow light that was below average. The Yunha Saint did not look too good. Next was the Stormy Wave Saint. He was a little nervous. I am the double champion. Logically speaking, the purity of my bloodline should not be low. The Stormy Wave Saint clenched his fists. He had always been arrogant and thought that he was a dragon among men. He had developed a flamboyant personality. However, at this moment, the Stormy Wave Saint stepped into the bloodline door, and the faint yellow light was so dazzling. No, impossible. How could my bloodline be so weak? The Stormy Wave Saint's face turned from red to green, then from green to purple. His bloodline was just as inferior as it was now. Ha, what a joke. Is this the bloodline of the water race's holy son? It's too weak. The Lion and Tiger Saints laughed heartily. That laughter was extremely ear-piercing. The Stormy Wave Saint simply wanted to turn into an ostrich and bury his head in the ground. Seeing the Stormy Wave Saint's pathetic appearance, Dragoness shook her head slightly. Even she looked down on the holy sun. The next one was Shui Rua. Shui Rua's expression was a little uneasy. After all, she had not been a saintess for long and had not developed the bearing that she should have. Mockery appeared on the faces of the Lion and Tiger Saints when they saw this. Is there no one else in the water tribe? They even sent out a little girl. The Black Tiger Saint child sneered. Hearing this, Shui Rua suppressed her anger and directly stepped into the bloodline door. In an instant, a rich green brilliance was released, and there were even traces of green in it. Hey, the purity of this little girl's bloodline is not bad. Sounds of surprise came from all around. Even Mu Lanyue's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She had never seen Shui Rua before, so she did not care. Although the purity of Shui Rua's bloodline was not particularly high, it was already above average, surpassing that of many saints and saintesses. However, if Mu Lanyue knew that Shui Rua was only an ordinary girl with an elite totem before, her jaw would definitely drop. Even the Lion and Tiger Saints' smiles faded a little. Although Shui Rua's bloodline was far from theirs, it was already better than most people's. How is this possible? I can't even compare to Shui Rua. The Stormy Wave Saint child looked dejected. Recently, he had suffered a series of blows, and his arrogance was all gone. Shui Ruo returned to Dragoness and Yi Guchen's side with a smile. Brother Dugu, Sister Dragoness's treasure is so powerful. It actually improved my bloodline. Shui Ruo did not know that her totem was transformed by Yi Guchen with great effort. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. Then, Dragoness slowly walked toward the bloodline gate. The lion and tiger saints also looked over. In their eyes, Shui Ruo and the others were insignificant. Dragoness was the one who received the most attention. Dragoness felt everyone's gaze on her. She took a deep breath. She stepped into the gate. The entire bloodline gate shook instantly. Dense green light suddenly spread out under the astonished gazes of the lion and tiger saints. Green light. Dragoness is indeed the number one of the younger generation of the water tribe. Many people exclaimed. Mu Lanyue seemed to have expected this and was not too surprised. She murmured, "It's really just green light?" Compared to the lion and tiger saints, it was still a little inferior. Although it's green light, it's still okay. The lion and tiger saints secretly sighed in relief. Their light was green with a hint of blue, which was obviously better than Dragoness. Dragoness felt the gazes of the people around her and smiled. Boom! She secretly activated the Seven Seas Jiao Dragon Totem in her body. At the same time, the Water Dragon bloodline was completely activated. After being refined by Yi Guchen's ancestral totem, Dragoness had undergone a complete transformation. Both the totem and the bloodline could not be mentioned in the same breath. At this moment, the green light of the bloodline gate changed again into a dense blue light. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple. The blue light was second only to the purple light. Even Mu Lanyue's bloodline purity could only reach the blue light. As for the purple light, it meant that the purity of the bloodline had reached the extreme. Even Tuoba Shang couldn't reach the purple light when testing the bloodline. However, Dragoness's blue light had shocked everyone. The lion and tiger saints' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They knew what Dragoness was capable of, which was why they found it even more unbelievable. How is this possible? The lion and tiger saints looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Dragoness smiled sarcastically and sneered, "A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. Lion and tiger saints, you're just frogs at the bottom of a well." Dragoness returned to Yi Guchen's side, her sparkling eyes filled with gratitude. If it weren't for Yi Guchen's help, she wouldn't have been able to get her revenge today. Dragoness must have completely activated the Water Dragon bloodline. She's different now. Mu Lanyue looked at Dragoness deeply. Now, the Dragon Lady's bloodline was not weaker than hers. This was beyond Mu Lanyue's expectations. This was a good thing for Mu Lanyue. At least she had another powerful helper. In the end, only Yi Guchen was left of the Water Tribe. Although the people around felt unfamiliar with Yi Guchen, they were still interested in him. Firstly, he was Dragoness's husband. Secondly, he had defeated Tuoba Lai. These 2 points alone were enough to attract attention. Mu Lanyue paid more attention to Yi Guchen. After all, the scene of Yi Guchen crushing Tuoba Lai had left a deep impression on her. Mu Lanyue also looked at him curiously. She also wanted to know the quality of this new Triple Crown champion's bloodline. The Stormy Wave Saint stared at Yi Guchen unwillingly. With his narrow-mindedness, he naturally hoped that Yi Guchen's bloodline was inferior. Yi Guchen looked indifferent. He didn't care about the others' gazes and walked to the bloodline gate. Dragoness secretly clenched her jade-like hands, worried for Yi Guchen. She was the only one present who knew that Yi Guchen wasn't a barbarian, let alone having the barbarian bloodline. Yi Guchen took a deep breath, and a dark light flashed in his eyes. He stepped into the bloodline gate. The world was silent. Chapter 543. Almost everyone's eyes were fixed on Yi Guchen. After all, Yi Guchen's reputation in the barbarian tribe was not weak. Mu Lanyue looked at Yi Guchen deeply. If Yi Guchen really displayed an extraordinary bloodline talent, then she might be able to give him a hand. However, after Yi Guchen stepped into the bloodline door, the entire bloodline door did not move at all for a moment. Not a single ray of light was emitted. This All the holy sons and holy daughters were bewildered. The dragon girl's face was slightly pale. "This guy, isn't he?" The stormy wave saint was stunned, but his face immediately showed joy. Mu Lanyue also frowned. The bloodline gate could not be wrong, so the only possibility was the atmosphere of the whole world seemed to be frozen. Even the elders of the Mulan family slowly stepped forward and stared at Yiguchen. In history, there was no lack of people from the 7 major forces who wanted to sneak into the barbarian tribe. But the result was, without exception, miserable. Just when the people of the Mulan family could not help but make a move, the bloodline gate finally emitted a rich green light. When the light came out, the dragon girl's heart finally settled down. Although she did not know how Yiguchen, as an outsider, did it, at least the crisis was over. Mu Lanyue was also slightly relieved. If this Triple Crown champion was an outsider impersonating him, it would be disappointing. However, the green light could only be said to be passable. Compared to the dragon girl, it was not amazing. But at this moment, the green light changed again. The rich blue light immediately spread out. Not to mention the ordinary saints, even the lion and tiger saints opened their eyes as wide as copper bells. The stormy wave saint's face was full of astonishment, which looked quite funny. Only Mu Lanyue and the dragon girl could trigger the blue light of the bloodline gate. Even the lion and tiger saints only had a hint of blue. Now there was a third person. But the shock was obviously not over. This was because within the blue light, there seemed to be a faint purple light. Could it be? Mu Lanyue was also surprised. She covered her mouth with her jade-like hand and stared at the bloodline gate in a daze. If there really was a purple light shining in the end, it would be quite shocking. This was because even 4-Crown King Tuobashang was unable to completely activate the purple light. Everyone held their breaths as they stared at the bloodline gate. But in the end, the light dissipated and Yiguchen withdrew. Mu Lanyue's eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. In the end, the purple light did not appear. Even so, the appearance of the blue light was extremely shocking. At least in Mu Lanyue's eyes, Yiguchen's bloodline was as pure as hers. Coupled with his Triple Crown champion strength, he would definitely be a great help to Mu Lanyue. For a moment, Mu Lanyue looked at Yiguchen with sparkling eyes. At this time, Dragoness faintly smiled and stood in front of Yiguchen. She teased Mu Lanyue, "Saintess Mu Lanyue, this is my husband. You guys are very good." Mu Lanyue smiled sincerely. On the other side, the White Lion Saint and the Black Tiger Saint's faces darkened. They were just mocking Dragoness and the others, but now, both Dragoness and Yiguchen were tested with a blue light, which represented a superior pure bloodline. They were slightly weaker. This is only the first round. There are still 2 more rounds. The 2 saints were unwilling to accept the result. Yiguchen looked at the bloodline gate thoughtfully. Just now, he secretly activated the Ancient God tactic. The Ancient God tactic was inherited from the Ancient God, who was the ancestor of the barbarian tribe. Yiguchen almost failed to control his strength just now. If he used all his strength, it would not be difficult to create a purple light shining in the world. But that would be too eye-catching and would cause speculation. "Brother Dugu, you are so powerful." Shui Ruo was completely convinced by Yiguchen. "Okay, let's go to the second round," Mu Lanyue said. The saints and saintesses who passed the test followed Mu Lanyue and left. As for those whose bloodline did not even release the yellow light, they were not qualified to participate in the next round of tests. Not long after, Mu Lanyue led everyone to a canyon in the mountain range. Mu Lanyue raised her voice and said, "The second round is a test of combat strength. There is a puppet array in the canyon with many invulnerable iron puppets whose strength is comparable to the 9 transformation divine soul realm. It is also the place where the disciples of the Mu Lanyue family train. The second round is very simple. You just need to pass through this canyon." Mu Lanyue's words caused an uproar. The saints and saintesses were only at the 9 transformation divine soul realm. But in the canyon, there were a large number of iron puppets of the same level. They were extremely strong and invulnerable. The difficulty of this round was definitely not low. Among the crowd, except for the lion and tiger saints, Mu Zhongling and other powerful saints and saintesses, the rest were nervous. Dragoness looked indifferent. Before her transformation, she was still afraid of this test. But now, she was not afraid at all. Shui Ruo, on the other hand, had a worried look on her face. Among the holy maidens, her battle prowess was probably on the lower side. The turbulent wave saint and the others were also nervous. Soon, there were people who took the test and entered the canyon. After a while, the sound of fighting could be heard. But not long after, the saint was sent flying by an iron puppet. The first saint to make a move had returned in failure. Then came the second and the third. Most of them could not pass. Only a few were able to persist for a long time and barely passed. Mu Lanyue sighed slightly. The saints and saintesses of the peace faction were still far behind the saints and saintesses of the Tuoba family. If it were Lei Juyo, Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others, it would be easy for them to pass through this puppet array. Next, the green-haired girl from the wood tribe, Mu Zhongling, made her move. Her figure was as graceful as a willow. With a wave of her hand, countless vines spread out and entangled those iron puppets. She was as light as a forest fairy. Soon, Mu Zhongling passed through the puppet array. She is indeed the top saintess of the wood tribe, Mu Lanyue praised. Finally, there was someone who stood out. The White Lion Holy Sun and the Black Tiger Holy Sun followed suit. They also quickly passed through the puppet array. Then, it was the aquatics' turn. The Turbulent Wave Saint and the others also barely passed through the puppet array. They were covered in injuries. Then, it was the Dragon Lady. She also displayed extraordinary strength, which attracted everyone's attention. Why do I feel that the Dragon Lady's strength has increased by a lot? She is not weaker than the Triple Crown King. Many people were surprised. They did not know about the Dragon Lady's transformation. Then, only Yiguchen and Shui Ruo were left. Shui Ruo smiled bitterly and was about to make her move. Although the probability was almost 100%, it was impossible to pass. Just then, Yiguchen turned to Mu Lanyue and asked lightly, "Can I bring someone with me?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The puppet array was already difficult enough. Ordinary saints could not pass it at all. Yiguchen wanted to bring someone with him? And it was obvious that Shui Ruo's strength was only a burden. She could not help Yiguchen. Mu Lanyue also looked at Yiguchen in surprise. This person was serious? No need. Brother Dugu, how can I trouble you? Shui Ruo hurriedly waved her hand, afraid that she would trouble Yiguchen. It's just a small matter, Yiguchen said casually. It was indeed a small matter to him. Ridiculous. He doesn't know how difficult it is to pass the puppet array. Those who made it through, including the Lion Tiger Saints and the others, all sneered. Although they could pass, it did not mean that the puppet array was easy to pass. Now is not the time to be a hero, Mu Lanyue reminded. Yiguchen's performance in the first round was beyond her expectations. However, the puppet array was a test of combat strength. It had nothing to do with bloodline talent. Mu Lanyue did not want to see Yiguchen fall in the second round. Say it. What's your request? Yiguchen said indifferently. You can bring someone with you, but the puppet array's power will be doubled. In other words, the number of iron puppets will also be doubled, Mu Lanyue said. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. The current puppet array was already difficult enough to deal with. If the difficulty was doubled, then how many people present here would be able to pass through? If the difficulty is doubled, I will have to put in a lot of effort to pass it. I can't even guarantee success, the wooden bell spirit murmured. I think he can't back down now, the Lion Saint and Tiger Saint sneered. Brother Dugu, thank you, but forget it. Shui Ruo was shocked by Mu Lanyue's words. Double the difficulty? How could they pass it? Yiguchen looked indifferent. Everyone stared at Yiguchen, wondering what he would choose. It's okay. Shui Ruo, follow behind me. Yiguchen did not think too much and said with a smile. Sigh. Mu Lanyue shook her head. She had already reminded him. If he failed in the end, he could only blame himself. Chapter 544. Yi Guqin and Shui Ruo stood side by side in front of the canyon, ready to challenge the puppet array. The saints and saintesses around them were all watching. Mu Lanyue sighed in her heart. She finally found a good helper. But it seemed that he was going to die in the second round. Sigh, how can Dugu Wubai be so stubborn? If he doesn't have the ability, Shui Ruo will be disqualified if something happens. Seeing this, the turbulent wave saint couldn't help but shake his head. You shut up. Dragoness looked unhappy and shouted coldly. The turbulent wave saint's face turned green and white. He looked at Yi Guqin gloomily. Not only him, but the lion and tiger saints were also watching Yi Guqin make a fool of himself. If he failed alone, he could only blame himself for being incompetent. But if he took an extra person with him because of his stubbornness, he would be disqualified and become a laughingstock. Let's start when you're ready, Mu Lanyue said. The power of the puppet array in the canyon had doubled, and the number of iron puppets had also doubled. Everyone present could even feel that the earth seemed to be shaking, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were shaking the canyon. Shui Ruo's face was slightly pale, but she still gritted her teeth. Just follow me, Yi Guqin said. Shui Ruo nodded. The two entered the canyon directly. Not long after entering the canyon, Yi Guqin saw the black iron puppets rushing toward them. These iron puppets were 7 feet tall, and their bodies were made of gold and iron. Divine weapons couldn't hurt them, and they were even more difficult to deal with than ordinary saints. They are somewhat similar to the blood cloud puppets, Yi Guqin thought to himself. Of course, the strength of these iron puppets was far inferior to the blood cloud puppets. But Yi Guqin couldn't use the power of the blood cloud puppets or the divine eagle. He could only rely on himself. Seeing the iron puppets attacking from all directions, Shui Ruo started to panic. Follow closely. Yi Guqin did not hesitate and immediately attacked. With his current strength, even if he did not use any moves, his unparalleled physical strength was enough to deal with these mindless puppets. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Guqin did not use his true qi. He did not even use his totemic power. Just a simple punch was enough to send the puppets flying backward. Even deep fist imprints had appeared on his tough body. What a powerful physical body! Mu Lanyue's beautiful eyes revealed surprise. The other saints and saintesses who were paying attention were also shocked. Yi Guqin's physical strength had exceeded their expectations. You do have some skills to be able to defeat Tuobalai. Even though the lion and tiger saints disdained Yi Guqin, they had to admit that his physical body was indeed amazing. But if that's the only way, I still can't bring people through, Mu Lanyue thought. Just as Yi Guqin pushed back the iron puppets in front of him, more and more puppets surrounded him from all directions. The number of iron puppets was twice as many as the ordinary puppets. Even Shui Ruo didn't want to be protected. She also urged her supreme totem to attack. But there were too many iron puppets. Even if Yi Guqin could send an iron puppet flying with one punch, it would take a while for him to clear all of them. If he was alone, it would be easy for him to pass. But now Shui Ruo was dragging him down. Shui Ruo could not keep up with Yi Guqin's pace in all aspects, such as reaction, speed, and strength. Even if Yi Guqin opened a path in front, Shui Ruo would be entangled by the iron puppets and would not be able to keep up. Not good, the situation is not good. On the other side of the canyon, the dragon lady, who had already passed, looked at Yi Guqin and Shui Ruo with worry. Shui Ruo's rhythm was completely messed up. She could not keep up with Yi Guqin's pace at all. And the number of iron puppets around them was increasing. It looked like they were about to surround them. If this continued, Yi Guqin and Shui Ruo would be exhausted to death. Hey, he's really trying to show off. He's harming himself and others. The lion and tiger sages shook their heads and laughed. Dragon lady, see, I was right. Trying to show off won't end well. As if he had finally seen Yi Guqin being defeated, the stormy wave sage's expression immediately became excited. The dragon lady could not be bothered with the stormy wave sage. She was just worried for Yi Guqin in her heart. On the other side, Mu Lanyue saw that Yi Guqin and Shui Ruo were in danger and shook her head slightly. She thought that she had received a great help again. But if he was arrogant and tried to show off, Not only would he not be of help, but he would also ruin things at the crucial moment. So if Yi Guchen could not pass the second round, then even if he was the Triple Crown champion, Mu Lanyue would have to give up. But Murengxiu, who was beside her, was still paying attention to Yi Guchen. He was someone who had witnessed Yi Guchen's strength. In the canyon, Shui Ruo, who was surrounded by iron puppets, was full of despair. Boom! Yi Guchen sent another iron puppet flying and landed beside Shui Ruo. Are you all right? Yi Guchen asked indifferently. I'm sorry, big brother Dugu. Shui Ruo has troubled you. You should go through the round alone. Shui Ruo is not strong enough. It's okay if I'm eliminated. Shui Ruo's face was full of guilt, because she was indeed a burden to Yi Guchen. I said, this is a small matter to me, Yi Guchen said indifferently. At this moment, the densely packed iron puppets in the surroundings finally formed an encirclement and completely surrounded the two of them. Boom, boom, boom. All the iron puppets shot out at the same time and attacked Yi Guchen and Shui Ruo. It's over. The lion and tiger sages shook their heads. Mu Lanyue also sighed. The dragon lady's palms were sweaty. Shui Ruo gritted her teeth. Even if she could not pass, she had to give it her all. Yi Guchen looked the most indifferent. They're just puppets. He suddenly activated the ancient god's tactic. Although he did not fully activate it and transform into the ancient god form, his physical strength increased exponentially. Blood qi gushed out of his body as if an ancient angry dragon had awakened. Yi Guchen punched the ground with all his strength. Boom! An incomparably terrifying vibrating force suddenly spread out, as if an immemorial giant beast was stomping on the ground. The power of the ancient god's tactic made the power of this punch extremely shocking. Bang! With Yi Guchen as the center, powerful ripples of air spread out in all directions. The iron puppets that rushed over were all sent flying dozens of feet away by this terrifying air wave. Thick cracks spread out like a spider web. Even the entire canyon was resonating and trembling. Huge rocks were falling from above. Yi Guchen took Shui Ruo and rushed out of the canyon like an arrow. It seemed like a long time, but in fact, it was only a few moments. Everyone had yet to come back to their senses when they were shocked by that huge wave of air fluctuations. The entire canyon seemed to be about to collapse. After a few breaths, everyone saw Yi Guchen and Shui Ruo appear at the other side of the canyon safe and sound. The lion and tiger sage's expressions froze. The stormy wave saint's mouth was wide open, and his expression was quite funny. As for the Mulan saintess, she showed a rare look of surprise. Murengxiu was not surprised. After all, she had seen Yi Guchen's strength. At this moment, everyone's eyes finally gathered on Yi Guchen's body. For the first time, they began to look at this ordinary-looking young man who had always been calm. Chapter 545. Did we pass? Shui Ruo's mouth was slightly open. Her expression was blank, as if she was in a dream. Just a moment ago, they were still surrounded by iron puppets. The next moment, they appeared safely outside the canyon. This sudden change caused Shui Ruo to be unable to regain her senses for a while. Yi Guchen stood calmly, as if this was a trivial matter. Shui Ruo finally managed to regain her senses. She looked at Yi Guchen with admiration and respect. This young man who appeared in front of her as a wandering barbarian at the beginning was now so unfathomable. The dragoness also breathed a sigh of relief, but she wasn't too surprised by this result. If 5 Crown King couldn't pass the puppet array, then it would be too ridiculous. The stormy wave saint shrank to the side, not daring to make a sound. He only felt his face turn red and hot. The lion and tiger saints looked at Yi Guchen with a much more dignified expression. If they could ignore the bloodline test in the first round. In that case, this round would be a test of real combat power. In the end, only about half of the people passed the second round. Mu Lanyue looked deeply at Yi Guchen, then led the group to the third round's test location. The third round's test location was next to a mountain peak. Mu Lanyue led the group to the foot of the mountain. This third round is also the last round. Do you see the stone pillar at the top of the mountain? Mu Lanyue said. The crowd glanced over and discovered a stone pillar at the top of the mountain. The top of the pillar was covered with various totem runes, as if countless totem runes had been carved onto it. That's a totem pillar of my Mu Lanue family. It can emulate the pressure released by the ancestral totem. The third round will test your supreme totems and totem power. Whoever can withstand the pressure of the ancestral totem and reach the top will pass. Of course, the shorter the time, the better. Mu Lanue's words caused an uproar. The first round didn't need to be mentioned. Although the second round was a bit difficult, everyone could still pass. But the third round wasn't so simple. An upper-level totem's suppression of a lower-level totem was almost like a rule that could not be violated. Not everyone could withstand the pressure of the primogenitor totem, even if it was just a simulation. Everyone, including the wooden bell spirit, the lion tiger saints, and the others wore a stern look. Instead, it was Yi Guchen who revealed a strange expression. Using the pressure of a simulated progenitor totem to test him, who had 5 progenitor totems. It wasn't just Yi Guchen. Even Dragon Lady looked at Yi Guchen strangely. If the third stage was the most difficult stage for the rest of the people, it would be extremely difficult. For Yi Guchen, who had 5 progenitor totems, this was considered going easy on him. This kind of test was simply like Li Gui meeting Li Kuei, a fake meeting the real thing. But at that moment, the lion and tiger saints looked at Dragon Lady and Yi Guchen. Dragon Girl, do you dare to compete with me? White Lion Holy Sun suddenly said. Oh, are you sure you want to compete? Dragon Lady almost laughed out loud in her heart, but on the surface, she frowned coldly. The lion and tiger saints looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Their golden-eyed white lion and heavenly demonic tiger totems were the top of the supreme totems. It was much easier for them to resist the progenitor totem's pressure than the others. Dragon Lady had not spread the news of her totem's transformation, so the lion and tiger saints still thought that her totem was the serene water dragon. This way, their advantage would be revealed. Of course, or are you aquatics afraid? Black Tiger Holy Sun provoked. Why would I be afraid? But since there are 2 of you, I want to compete with my husband, Dragon Lady said and pulled Yi Guchen to her side. Yi Guchen was speechless. Wasn't this bullying the lion and tiger saints? But seeing this, their eyes flashed and they were thinking. Although the Triple Crown King had 3 totems, if it was just an ordinary supreme totem, it might not be easier for him to resist the progenitor totem's pressure. So without thinking for long, the lion and tiger saints agreed. But since we are going to compete, how can there be no wager? Dragon Lady smiled. Ah, I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. The lion and tiger saints were stunned for a moment, then laughed. They were very confident in themselves and thought that they would win. If Dragon Lady had not said so, they would have forgotten that they could reap benefits from it. Let's bet 10 5 elements sacred items, Dragon Lady said. 10. Some of the holy sons around them were surprised. The 5 elements sacred items were not something that could be found on the streets. They were very helpful for totem cultivation. Even if they were holy sons, it would be painful to take out 10 sacred items at once. The lion and tiger saints were stunned for a moment, but they did not hesitate. With their status and strength, they could take out 10 sacred items. Dragon Lady rolled her eyes and said, I heard that the barbarians also produce a special sacred item called the 5-element stone. It contains the power of 5 elements. Dragon Lady's words made the lion and tiger saints' expressions change slightly. Ordinary divine items were nothing. They could afford them. But the 5-element stone was different. It was a rare sacred item that contained the power of 5 elements. It was very precious. Yi Guchen's eyes flickered. Dragon Lady must have fought for the 5-element stone for him. Because only Yi Guchen had the 5 elements totem. Why, are you not confident in the competition? Dragon Lady smiled. She was like a sly little fox, baiting the 2 of them. The lion and tiger saints frowned. They looked at Dragon Lady and Yi Guchen, but they could not think of a way for them to win. When Dragon Lady saw this, she gritted her teeth. She flipped her hand and took out a god item. The sacred item was as beautiful as an ice crystal. Gosh, it's the sacred item of the water tribe, the rainbow ice crystal. A holy sun saw it and exclaimed. It was obvious that Dragon Lady wanted to use the rainbow ice crystal as a wager for the 5-element stone. When the lion and tiger saints saw this, a trace of greed appeared in their eyes. In addition, they were confident in themselves. Without much hesitation, they agreed to it. This wager attracted some attention. The stormy wave Holy Sun opened his mouth slightly. He wanted to say that Dragon Lady was being reckless, but he shut his mouth in the end and watched coldly. Mu Lanyue glanced at them with slight interest. But after some consideration, Mu Lanyue still felt that the lion and tiger saints had a better chance of winning. In terms of the number of totems, Dragon Lady might have the advantage. After all, she had the Triple Crown King. But in terms of quality, Mu Lanyue favored the lion and tiger saints. Then, the third test officially began. On the top of the mountain, the countless totem brands on the surface of the totem pillar seemed to come to life, releasing various colors of light. Then, an extremely powerful aura covered the entire area, as if a primordial dragon had awakened. Even at the foot of the mountain, the holy sons and holy daughters felt that it was difficult to breathe. The supreme totems in their bodies were unstable. Is this the aura of the primogenitor totem? Many people were shocked. This is just a simulation. If it's the real primogenitor totem, how powerful would it be? Some holy sons sighed. I finally understand why even Tuoba Shang failed against the Quintuple Crown King. How powerful would this aura be if it's multiplied by 5? Many people thought of the Quintuple Crown King and were shocked by his strength. The only person who did not feel anything was Yi Guchen. Chapter 546. As the pressure of the totem pillar spread, the third test officially began. A saint stepped out and released his supreme totem. Then, he endured the pressure of the totem pillar and began to climb to the top. The closer he got to the top, the stronger the pressure and the slower his speed. As for that saint, he barely made it halfway up the mountain before collapsing. His face was pale as he tumbled down, covered in dust. This is too difficult. The expressions of some holy sons and holy daughters changed abruptly. This saint wasn't weak, but he couldn't even reach the top. Not to mention the time it would take. It was meaningless. Failed. Mu Lanyue's expression was calm as if she had expected this. Although it was just a simulation of the ancestral totem's pressure, it was far from what an ordinary saint could withstand. It would be considered good if 10 or 20 of the saints could reach the top. Next, the saints and saintesses stepped out and began to climb. But without exception, most of them only made it halfway up the mountain. The best among them were only close to the top before they were pressed down by the pressure. Isn't this test a bit harsh? It seems that not many can truly reach the top, Mu Lanxiu said. I don't expect many to reach the top. It's enough to find a few good helpers. But Mu Zhongling and the lion and tiger saints should be able to reach the top, Mu Lanyue said. What about Duguwubai and Dragoness? Mu Lanxiu asked. Mu Lanyue's beautiful eyes flickered. Dragoness must have awakened her water dragon bloodline. But her totem is the serene blue serpent, which isn't too strong among the supreme totems. As for the Triple Crown King, his totem probably can't compare to the lion and tiger saints, so it's hard to predict the result. Mu Lanyue didn't deny Dragoness and Yi Guchen, but she didn't have high hopes either. Is that so? Mu Lanxiu looked deeply at Yi Guchen. She vaguely felt that this Triple Crown King, who had shocked the world with a single feat, would make another shocking move today. Let me. In the crowd, a green-haired and green-eyed saintess of the wood race, Mu Zhongling, stepped out. She also released her own totem. It was very strange. It was not an ordinary totem, but a big tree with green light. It rose from the ground behind the wooden bell spirit. The ancient green tree had a strange life force. Its trunk was like jade, entwined with green vines. What a strange totem. Yi Guchen gave it a sidelong glance. This was the first time he had seen such a totem. That's a plant totem. It's a towering ancient tree. Even among the highest totems, it's one of the best, Dragon Lady explained. As the top saintess of the Wood Clan, the wooden bell spirit naturally had some skills. Before, Dragoness was envious of the wooden bell spirit for having such a totem. But now, he didn't care at all. The transformed Seven Seas Jiao Dragon totem was no weaker than the towering ancient tree. Among the supreme totems, it was considered one of the best. After releasing the totem, the wooden bell spirit tapped her feet lightly and flashed toward the mountain peak. Although the totem's pressure was very strong, the wooden bell spirit looked very relaxed halfway up the mountain, as expected of a top supreme totem. Below, many saints and saintesses looked envious. However, when they were halfway up the mountain, the pressure of the totem increased abruptly. Even the wooden bell spirit was no longer as relaxed as before. But behind her, the towering ancient tree's branches and leaves suddenly shook. A green light enveloped the wooden bell spirit's delicate body. She felt the pressure suddenly disappear. Then, the wooden bell spirit climbed up step by step. In the end, it took a full 5 minutes for the wooden bell spirit to completely step on the mountain peak. But the moment she stepped on the mountain peak, the wooden bell spirit's face was extremely pale. She couldn't even stand steadily. Very good, Mu Lanyue praised. Some of the spectating saints and saintesses also cheered. The wooden bell spirit was the first to completely reach the mountain peak. Humph, what a procrastinator. Others admired the wooden bell spirit, but there was a faint trace of disdain in the eyes of the lion and tiger saints. Being able to reach the peak was already considered good, but it was still not enough to be taken seriously by them. Dragon Girl, don't forget about our battle. Please be a witness. At this moment, the white lion saint stood out and said loudly. The surrounding saints and saintesses all looked over. It seemed that the lion and tiger saints were also about to start climbing. Don't worry, the Dragon Girl, will never go back on my words. But you guys, don't go back on your words later. The Dragon Girl smiled. Where does your confidence come from? The black tiger saint shook his head as if he thought the Dragon Girl's behavior was ridiculous. Next, the lion and tiger saints also started climbing. If the two of them climbed at the same time, the pressure would be even stronger. The two of them summoned their totems at the same time. Two earth-shattering roars shook heaven and earth, echoing in all directions. Vigorous totem power spread out, and two totem spirits appeared in the void. One was a golden-eyed white lion. Its aura was shocking, and it was extremely vigorous. Its fur was snow-white, and its golden eyes were like two small suns. It was breathtaking. The other was a heavenly demonic tiger. Its body was pitch black, and its demonic aura was billowing. Its blood-red eyes scanned the crowd, frightening them. What a powerful totem! Most of the saints and saintesses present had the same thought. These two totems were more powerful than ordinary supreme totems. Even the Dragon Girl had a faint trace of seriousness in her eyes. Although she did not like the lion and tiger saints, she had to admit that they were indeed powerful. Humph, open your eyes wide and watch carefully. The white lion saint glanced at the Dragon Girl, and then started climbing with the black tiger saint. Their speed was really like that of tigers, leopards, and lions. They climbed halfway up the mountain in an instant. When they were halfway up the mountain, the pressure suddenly increased. Even the lion and tiger saints slowed down. But they were still faster than the wooden bell spirit. In the end, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the lion and tiger saints only used 15 minutes to reach the top of the mountain. That's fast. Mu Lanyue's beautiful eyes were also filled with surprise. Even if she wanted to reach the top, she would only be a little faster than the lion and tiger saints. Dragon Girl, with everyone here as witnesses, you can't go back on your words. 10 5 elements sacred items and the 7-colored ice crystal. The lion and tiger saints went down the mountain and sneered at the Dragon Girl, as if the result was already decided. The Dragon Girl did not care. She just looked at them coldly. Yiguchen thought for a while and brought Shui Rua along. Are you sure you want the three of us? If so, the pressure will increase again. Seeing Yiguchen bring Shui Rua along, Mu Lanyue could not help but have a headache. In the eyes of others, this challenge was incomparably difficult. But to this young man, it seemed to be a piece of cake. The Dragon Girl glanced at Yiguchen. Since he was confident, The dragon girl did not say anything more. He even brought a burden with him. The lion and tiger sages sneered when they saw this. If it was just the dragon girl and Yiguchen, there might be some possibility. However, with the addition of a burden, the result was not certain. The dragon girl, Yiguchen, and Shui Ruo prepared to climb. Chapter 547. At the top of the mountain, the totem pillar released a strong pressure. The three of them climbed at the same time. The pressure was even stronger than that of the lion and tiger saints. Dragoness immediately released her totem. A terrifying dragon that was dozens of feet long appeared behind the dragon girl. It had dark blue scales and was surrounded by water vapor and cold currents. It had an extremely powerful aura. What's that? Dragon Lady's supreme totem caused an uproar. As the most famous saintess of the water tribe, Dragon Lady's totem was no secret. But the huge and powerful flood dragon was definitely not a serene blue flood dragon. Why is your totem like this? The lion and tiger saints were stunned for a moment. Dragon Lady's performance was completely out of their expectations. The lion and tiger saints felt that the Seven Seas flood dragon was no weaker than the golden eye white lion and the heavenly demon tiger. I'll say it again. You're just frogs at the bottom of a well, Dragon Lady said lightly. On the other side, Mu Lanyue looked surprised. I didn't expect Dragon Lady's totem to transform after awakening her water dragon bloodline. Mu Lanyue misunderstood and blamed Dragon Lady's transformation on the awakening of the water dragon bloodline. But she didn't know that Dragon Lady's transformation was helped by Yiguchen's ancestral totem. As Dragon Lady activated her totem, Shui Ruo also activated her totem. But her totem was much weaker than Dragon Lady's. After all, Shui Ruo's was only an elite totem. Upgrading it to a supreme totem was already the limit. Luckily we have this burden. Seeing the aura of Shui Ruo's totem, the lion and tiger saints breathed a sigh of relief. However, Yiguchen, who was the focus of everyone's attention, did not release his totem immediately. What's he doing? Many people were puzzled. Let's go, Yiguchen said lightly. Even if he didn't release his totem, the pressure couldn't do anything to him. But in the eyes of others, it looked like Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo were protecting him with their own totem power. That works? Is he still a Triple Crown champion? Yeah, don't you have a bit of manliness? Seeing Yiguchen standing between the two women without activating his totem, many saints and saintesses secretly despised him. Mu Lanyue frowned slightly and looked at Yiguchen. That can't be. Could it be that the true burden is this Triple Crown champion? The lion and tiger sages exchanged a glance, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yiguchen turned a blind eye to everyone's playful gazes. The three of them reached the middle of the mountain in a very short amount of time. However, the moment he reached the middle of the mountain, the oppressive might suddenly increased by several times. Even the Dragon Lady's Seven Seas serpent dragon was under immense pressure. It was as if she had fallen into a swamp. Shui Ruo was even more unbearable. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, and it was difficult for her to move an inch. It seems like there's a result. The lion and tiger saints were delighted to see this. Is he really trying to be brave? Mu Lanyue sighed slightly. If all three of them failed, it would be a huge loss. Under everyone's gaze, the Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo slowed down. Seeing this, Yiguchen no longer held back. He stomped his foot on the ground. In an instant, there was a loud explosion. The incomparably vigorous totem power poured out like a broken dam. At the same time, he used the wave illusion secret technique. The three ancestral totems imitated the supreme totem and spread out. What a powerful aura. No wonder he's the Triple Crown champion. Seeing that Yiguchen had finally used his three totems, there was an uproar below. The Triple Crown champion was already considered a top existence among the barbarian saints. Even the lion and tiger sages didn't have a trace of contempt in their eyes. Although the people below couldn't feel it, the Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo beside Yiguchen could clearly feel it. All the pressure was suddenly lifted, and they felt incomparably relaxed. Let's go. Yiguchen smiled faintly. The Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo looked at each other and smiled. Shui Ruo didn't think too much. She only thought that Yi Guchen's 3 totems could completely isolate the pressure. She didn't know that Yi Guchen's 3 totems were at the ancestral level. Then, under Yi Guchen's protection, the Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo were extremely relaxed. They walked as if they were walking on flat ground. There was almost no pressure to speak of. Their relaxed appearance made the lion and tiger sages dumbfounded. Even Mu Lanyue looked at the 3 of them strangely. If it weren't for the totem pillar at the top of the mountain still operating, she would have thought that the totem pillar had failed. In the end, under the lion and tiger sages' dumbfounded gazes, Yi Guchen and the other 2 reached the top of the mountain in less than 15 minutes. This broke everyone's record. It even broke Mu Lanyue's record. Sister Yu, do you still think that Duguobai is insignificant? Mu Lanyue asked. Mu Lanyue was speechless. Indeed, at the beginning, although she had heard of the Triple Crown King and knew that Yi Guchen had defeated Toba Lai, she didn't think too much of it. After all, the Toba camp had also recruited some Triple Crown Kings. But now, it seemed that Yi Guchen's performance in these 3 tests was far beyond Mu Lanyue's expectations. Mu Lanyue was even doubtful that she would be able to suppress Duguobai if she were to compete with him. With such a powerful helper, the situation would be better than before, even if they couldn't completely resist the Tuoba family. Yi Guchen and the other 2 returned to the bottom of the mountain. Everyone looked at them with different gazes. Especially when they looked at Yi Guchen, there was a faint sense of awe. The stormy wave saint didn't dare to look directly at Yi Guchen's eyes anymore. He bent his body like a coward. As for the lion and tiger saints, they stood in the same place, their faces alternating between green and white. The dragoness glanced at them and smiled faintly. The lion and tiger saints won't go back on their words, right? Hearing the dragoness's words, the lion and tiger saints' faces darkened. Dragoness, enough is enough, the white lion saint said in a deep voice. The 5 elemental stone was a top 5 elemental divine item. It was extremely rare even among the barbarians. Even the 2 of them only had a few pieces in total. Now they had to take out a piece and 10 other divine items. It was a huge loss. Enough is enough. If we were the ones who lost this time, would you be so magnanimous? The dragoness mocked. Although the saints and saintesses around them didn't dare to say anything openly, their hidden gazes revealed a hint of disdain. The barbarians hated untrustworthy people the most. They could feel the sharp gazes piercing into their bodies like needles. No matter how thick-skinned the lion and tiger saints were, they still felt embarrassed. If they didn't fulfill their promise today, their reputations would be ruined. Take it. The white lion saint gritted his teeth and swung his hand. The dragoness took the stone and looked at it. Her eyes curved into crescents. In the past, it was the lion and tiger saints who oppressed the water tribe. Now, the dragoness finally had her revenge. Without any hesitation, the dragoness handed the 5 elemental stone to Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen didn't hesitate and took it. As soon as it touched his hand, he felt the 5 elemental powers in the 5 elemental stone harmonizing with each other. Interesting. Yi Guchen's eyes lit up. The 5 elemental stone would be of great help to his understanding of the 5 elemental totems and the 5 elemental sword will. Next, all the saints and saintesses went through the pressure test. Finally, Mu Lanyue walked in front of everyone and looked around. Her gaze paused on Yi Guchen and she said, "Everyone, the 3 tests have been passed. Next, I will announce the candidates who are qualified to follow me into the door of the ancient god." As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Chapter 548. Why did they come to the Mulan family for the test? It was all for the chance to enter the door of the ancient god. Everyone knew what the door of the ancient god represented. Ancestral bloodlines, sacred medicines, divine weapons, totem inheritances, every single one of these opportunities was enough to make people go crazy. If someone was lucky enough to obtain the ancestral bloodline inheritance, their status in the barbarian tribe would be different. Even the 5 Elements Temple would focus on nurturing them. For this opportunity, they were willing to gamble. That was why they were willing to come to the Mulan family to assist Mu Lanyue. When Mu Lanyue finished speaking, the hearts of all the saints and saintesses tightened. Those saints and saintesses who didn't pass all the tests were disappointed. They knew they didn't have much of a chance. As for those who had barely passed through the 3 stages, they were on tenterhooks and extremely nervous. Lion and Tiger Saints, Mu Lanyue said. The people present were not too surprised when they heard this. The Lion and Tiger Saints were the candidates Mu Lanyue relied on. However, in this way, 2 out of the 10 spots had been reduced. This was undoubtedly a torment for the remaining people. Wooden Bell Spirit, Mu Lanyue continued. The Wooden Bell Spirit pursed her lips and smiled. She wasn't surprised by her selection. Next, Mu Lanyue picked a few more people, all of whom performed well in the 3 tests. Yi Guchen stood calmly without the slightest hint of nervousness. He believed that if Mu Lanyue was a little wiser, she would know what to choose. Dragoness, Mu Lanyue said. Dragoness nodded. She wasn't surprised, but she glanced at Yi Guchen with worry. Mu Lanyue also glanced at Yi Guchen, but she seemed to be deliberately dragging it out. She named 2 more names, but she didn't mention Yi Guchen. This was because Yi Guchen had always been calm and collected. Therefore, Mu Lanyue wanted to see Yi Guchen's nervous expression. But to her disappointment, Yi Guchen's eyes were calm from beginning to end. As time passed, Mu Lanyue had already chosen 8 people. Only 2 people were left. The hearts of the remaining saints and saintesses were in their throats, and their faces were flushed red. On the other hand, Yi Guchen was as calm as an old monk in meditation. Mu Lanyue secretly gritted her teeth. She felt that she couldn't see through Yi Guchen. Don't you care about the quota? Mu Lanyue finally couldn't help but ask Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen faintly glanced at Mu Lanyue and said, "What's mine will naturally be mine. If I miss it, then so be it." Because he needed to enter the door of the ancient god, Yi Guchen also performed well in the 3 tests. If Mu Lanyue still refused to give him the spot, then Yi Guchen would naturally think of other ways. It was impossible for Yi Guchen to lower himself and beg for help. Mu Lanyue took a deep look at Yi Guchen with a trace of admiration in her beautiful eyes. She could tell that Yi Guchen's personality and attitude were not an act, but had always been like this. People with this kind of personality were usually more reliable. The 9th spot, Dugubai, Mu Lanyue said. The Lion and Tiger Saints showed a touch of disappointment in their eyes. They had hoped that Yi Guchen would fail, although it was somewhat unlikely. Yi Guchen nodded lightly. Thank you. Mu Lanyue cleared her throat and looked around at everyone. She found that Shui Ruo was the only one who had passed the 3 tests. But Mu Lanyue really didn't think much of Shui Ruo's strength. If it weren't for Yi Guchen's help, Shui Ruo wouldn't even have passed the 2nd test. Her beautiful eyes shifted again and fell on the Stormy Wave Saint. Although the Stormy Wave Saint's strength was not particularly strong, as the double champion, he could be considered outstanding among the remaining people. The last one, Stormy Wave Saint, Mu Lanyue said. The Stormy Wave Saint's face was slightly stunned, and immediately showed extreme ecstasy. Thank you, Saintess Mu Lanyue. You really have a good eye. The Stormy Wave Saint was overjoyed. His shrunken back seemed to be straightened, and his nostrils were almost raised to the sky. As the saying goes, when a villain achieves success, he becomes arrogant. Oh, Duguwubai, you're just SOS. Now that I also have the opportunity to enter the door of the ancient god, I'll get some opportunities. It won't take me too long to surpass you. The Stormy Wave Saint couldn't help but smile. He no longer looked at Yi Guchen's eyes. In his mind, he was already outlining how to crush Yi Guchen after getting the opportunities, and how to take the Dragon Lady back from Yi Guchen. Beside Yi Guchen, Shui Ruo's face darkened slightly. She wasn't dissatisfied that she didn't get a place. Instead, she felt guilty because she had let down Yi Guchen's help. Yi Guchen frowned slightly and said, Shui Ruo is the only one left who passed the 3 tests. Why can't she get the last place? As soon as he said that, everyone was stunned. This young man dared to talk to Mu Lanyue in such a questioning tone? Big brother Dugu, forget it. Shui Ruo is too weak. Shui Ruo hurriedly pulled Yi Guchen's sleeve, fearing that he would make Mu Lanyue unhappy. Mu Lanyue also frowned slightly. She did admire Yiguchen, but Yiguchen's questioning made her a little uncomfortable. Although Shui Rua passed the 3 tests, it was because of your help. She's not strong enough, so why can't she find someone to replace her? Mu Lanyue said. Hearing this, the stormy wave saint raised his nose and said, Dugubai, are you questioning Saintess Mu Lanyue's decision? As the double crown king, am I not stronger than Shui Rua? If Shui Rua drags us down in the door of the ancient god, will you be responsible? The series of questions caused everyone present to nod their heads in agreement. In the actual situation, Mu Lanyue's decision was indeed wise. Yiguchen's face turned slightly cold. With me here, no one can drag us down. As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. This sentence was indeed arrogant. It was not something that anyone could say easily. Because Mu Lanyue and the others were going to face the top geniuses of the Tuoba family, the Gold Clan, and the Thunder Clan. Do you know who we're going to face? Mu Lanyue frowned tightly. She felt that Yiguchen should not be an arrogant person. But this was indeed not something that anyone was qualified to say. Let Shui Rua join and leave Tuoba Shang to me, Yiguchen said calmly with his hands behind his back. It was as if he was saying something very normal. But when these words fell into everyone's ears, it was tantamount to a clap of thunder. Did you hear what Duguubai said? I must have misheard. Do you believe it? Anyway, I don't believe it. All the saints and saintesses' eyes were fixed on Yiguchen. Leave Tuoba Shang to him? Who did he think he was? Ridiculous, too ridiculous. Does he think he's invincible just because he defeated Tuoba Lai? How is he different from a frog at the bottom of a well? The lion and tiger saints shook their heads and sneered. Tuoba Ashang had accumulated power in the barbarian race for a long time. Except for the defeat in the barren ancient arena, he had almost never lost. In the face of such an existence, almost no one dared to compete with him. Duguubai, you're bragging too much. Who do you think you are? The mysterious quintuple crown king? The stormy wave saint couldn't help but scold loudly with a face full of sarcasm. How could he be willing to let Shui Rua take his spot? Even Mu Lanyue was shocked by Yiguchen's words. She looked at Yiguchen and found that his pitch-black eyes were as deep as the night. There was not a trace of frivolity in them. It's up to you whether to believe it or not, Yiguchen said lightly. Although not a trace of aura was released, Mu Lanyue felt as if she was facing the vast night sky alone. Mu Lanyue was silent for a long time. Seeing this, the stormy wave saint raised the corner of his mouth with a smug smile. How could Mu Lanyue change her mind because of such ignorant arrogance? Sigh. A sigh came out of Mu Lanyue's mouth. The last spot is given to Shui Rua. The smug smile at the corner of the stormy wave saint's mouth froze and almost twitched. This was the so-called extreme joy begets sorrow. Chapter 549. Everyone present also stared at Mu Lanyue in amazement. They didn't expect that Mu Lanyue would really side with Yiguchen. Saintess Mu Lanyue, this gate of the ancient god isn't a game. Are you sure you want to bring a burden? The lion and tiger saints frowned. Even they didn't expect that Mu Lanyue would believe Yiguchen's arrogant words. Mu Lanyue smiled bitterly and looked at Yiguchen. Although reason tells me that you're talking to yourself, this operation doesn't have much chance of winning. In this case, I might as well believe you this time. Hearing this, some people felt relieved. It turned out that Mu Lanyue didn't think this operation would be successful. It must be because the Tuoba family gave her a lot of pressure. She thought that there wouldn't be much difference whether it was the stormy wave saint or Shui Rua. In this case, she might as well give Yiguchen face. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows slightly. Mu Lanyue didn't believe his words. Was she just giving him face on the surface? But Yiguchen didn't refute. Thousands of words were not as simple and direct as actions. When the time came, Mu Lanyue would know that she had made the right decision. No, how could it be? The most miserable person present was none other than the stormy wave saint. At this moment, his eyes were lifeless and he shook his head as if he couldn't believe that Mu Lanyue would side with Yiguchen. Saintess Mu Lanyue, how can you believe him? Anyone can say such arrogant words. He's not the five-crown king. How can he deal with Tuobashang? The stormy wave saint shrieked like a plucked rooster. Enough, this is the result. Those who haven't been chosen can stay in the Mu Lanyue family to rest. When the time comes, we can go to the Five Elements Temple together to watch the ceremony. As for those who have been chosen, follow me. Mu Lanyue said and walked directly into the mountain range. The Lion and Tiger Saints, Wooden Bell Spirit, Dragon Lady, Yiguchin, and the others followed Mu Lanyue and left. The stormy wave saint stood there dejectedly, looking extremely miserable. Dugubai, I must see with my own eyes how you'll be crushed by Tuobashang. The stormy wave saint's eyes spat fire with a ferocious expression. On the other side, Mu Lanyue, and the others led the 10 selected to a secluded pavilion. Mu Lanyue turned around and glanced at the 10 people with a heavy expression on her face. Tell you the truth, Tuobashang's life's death cave. Life and death cave? Yiguchin was slightly confused. The Lion and Tiger Saints and the others, S at the waves' the wave, S and dragon. Dragons was Eltis? Mu, he the Mu, a slain. Mu Lanyue nodded and said in a low voice, ever since Tuobashang was defeated by Five-Crown King in the barren ancient arena, he made up his mind and entered the life and death cave. I'm sure everyone knows that the Life and Death Cave is the most dangerous place in the barbarian tribe. It can be said that it's the best place to train people. Although the opportunities inside can't be compared to the door of the ancient god, it's still extremely precious. In the past, those who entered the Life and Death Cave almost all died. However, Tuobashang came out of the Life and Death Cave a while ago, and I've heard that his strength has increased tremendously. Mu Lanyue's words made the atmosphere tense. Even the Lion and Tiger Saints, who had said that they would definitely win this mission, looked unnatural. The current Tuobashang is much stronger than before. Even the Triple Crown King can't last long in front of him. At this point, Mu Lanyue glanced at Yiguchin. She thought that Yiguchin didn't know that Tuobashang had entered the Life and Death Cave, which was why he dared to say that. Now that he knew the truth, what would Yiguchin's attitude be? However, what surprised Mu Lanyue was that Yiguchin's expression was still indifferent. Seeing this, Mu Lanyue continued, Tuobashang has already said that with his current strength, if he faces Five-Crown King again he won't lose. These words were obviously a warning to Yiguchin, telling him not to be too confident and impulsive. Yiguchin's eyes flashed with a hint of battle intent. This kind of opponent is more interesting. Yiguchin sighed in his heart. Not only was he not afraid, but he was also happy to meet a worthy opponent. If Tuobashang was still as strong as before, Yiguchin wouldn't be too interested. Seeing that Yiguchin's expression didn't change, Mu Lanyue sighed inwardly. He probably hasn't seen Tuobashang's strength after his transformation. Mu Lanyue thought to herself, Dugubai, you just said that Tuobashang will be handed over to you. Don't disappoint the saintess. The Lion and Tiger Saints looked at Yiguchin mockingly, obviously wanting to see how he would back up his bold words. The gate of the ancient gods will reveal itself. Yiguchin didn't want to say more. So what if he said more? Those who shouldn't believe him wouldn't believe him. When the time came, when the ironclad truth was placed in front of them, they would naturally know how laughable their actions were. Other than Tuobashang, the Toba family also has several powerful Triple Crown Kings. Lei Juyo, Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others don't need to be mentioned. You have to pay special attention to one person, Mu Lanyue said. Who? The Wooden Bell Spirit and the others all pricked up their ears. Mo Yi, Mu Lanyue said. Who is Mo Yi? Everyone looked at each other. They searched their memories but didn't know which clan had a holy son named Mo Yi. Mo Yi is a wandering barbarian, but he's also very powerful. He was chosen by the Tuoba family, so the enemies we'll face this time are all extraordinary, Mu Lanyue said solemnly. The entire atmosphere was completely silent. The transformed Tuoba Lai and the Triple Crown Kings of the Tuoba family. Lei Juyo, Golden Sun Saint, Feng Xiaotian, and the others. And Mo Yi, who had appeared out of nowhere. This lineup was indeed despairing. Even the lion and tiger saints were silent at this moment. Their eyes flickered as if they were thinking about something. All right, there are still a few days before the gate of the ancient gods opens. You all can rest and recuperate in the Mu Lanue family for the time being. When the time comes, we'll go together. Just do your best, Mu Lanue said slowly after seeing the tense atmosphere. Everyone present nodded slightly, but they were a little absent-minded and depressed. Sigh, if only Five Crown King was here. Mu Lanue was annoyed. If she could rope in the mysterious Five Crown King, she wouldn't have to fear Toba Shang now. But it was a foregone conclusion, so Mu Lanue could only sigh. She didn't know that the person she had been longing to rope in was standing in front of her. Looks like the gate of the ancient gods won't be too boring this time. There was a faint smile in Yi Guchen's eyes. But in an instant, the smile turned into a touch of coldness. Anyone who dared to stand in his way, whether it was the transformed Tuoba Shang or Lei Juyo and the others, he could just crush them. Chapter 550. In the next few days, Yi Guchen, Dragon Girl, and the others stayed in the Milan clan to meditate. As for the saints and saintesses who were not chosen, they did not leave either. This was because they could also follow and attend the ceremony in a few days. In these few days, Yi Guchen had been comprehending the Tao of the five elements. Yi Guchen had already comprehended the individual Tao of the five elements. However, the Tao of the five elements was not something that could be achieved by simply superimposing the five elements together. Yi Guchen began to comprehend with the help of the five elements stone he had obtained. The Tao of the five elements is endless, forming a cycle of death and destruction with a single thought. Yi Guchen took out an epiphany leaf, put it in his mouth, and began to comprehend. His comprehension ability was already excellent, and with the help of the epiphany leaf and the five elements stone, Yi Guchen's comprehension of the sword intent of the five elements became deeper and deeper. Of course, it was a peerless sword intent after all. It was obviously not realistic to comprehend it in just a few days. However, after 3 days, Yi Guchen, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. In his pitch-black eyes, there were 5 types of brilliance flashing one after another. In the next moment, Yi Guchen stretched out a hand and opened it. A sharp metallic sword aura formed, and then there was a flash of green brilliance. Then there was steam rising, and then there was a blazing flame spreading. In the end, there was a vigorous earth attribute power. Still a little lacking, but compared to before, I've improved a lot. Yi Guchen's eyes were bright. If it was before, he only had a vague idea of the sword intent of the 5 elements. But now, he had already comprehended it to an extremely profound level. Of course, he was still some opportunities away from completely comprehending it, but he was not far away. Yi Guchen raised his other hand and opened it. The 5 element stone's brilliance disappeared, and with a slight crush, it turned into dust and floated down. At this moment, Dragon Girl's voice came from outside the door. "Get ready, we're about to set off. Are we finally going to the door of the ancient god?" Yi Guchen stood up. His eyes were deep and carried a kind of obsession. Presumably, the door of the ancient god this time would be very exciting. Outside the mountain range where the Mulan family resided, there was a hubbub of voices. This time, a lot of people from the Mulan family would be going. Not only Mu Lanue and the others who had entered the door of the ancient god, but also many elders. The Raging Wave Saint's son and some other saints and saintesses who had failed the selection were also here. They would go together when the time came. Yi Guchen followed Dragon Lady and Shui Ruo to this place. He immediately saw a middle-aged man with a slender body and a calm temperament. Mu Lanue stood behind the man. Is that the patriarch of the Mulan family, Mulan Bo? Looking at the middle-aged man, Yi Guchen thought to himself. As the master of the barbarian clan, Muranbo's strength was undoubtedly at the divine dwelling stage. Even in the divine dwelling stage, he wasn't bad. Behind Mulan Bo, Mulan Yu nodded slightly when she saw Yi Guchen and the others arrive. She brought some of the Mulan family's disciples to Yi Guchen's side. On the other side, the lion-tiger saints, the wooden bell spirit, and the others had also arrived. The people who had entered the door of the ancient god were divided into two groups. One group was Mulan Yu, Mulan Xiao, and the other saints and saintesses of the Mulan family. The other group was Yi Guchen and the others, as well as the lion-tiger saints, the wooden bell spirit, and the others. Yi Guchen glanced at them. He recognized Mulan Yu and Mulan Xiao. The remaining members of the Mulan family added up to a dozen or so people. Among them, there were two people that caught Yi Guchen's attention. They were a young man and a young woman. They had good looks, but there was a hint of arrogance. Although they didn't reveal their aura, Yi Guchen could feel that the surging totemic power in their bodies had reached the level of a Triple Crown champion. 2 Triple Crown champions? Yi Guchen thought to himself. As a barbarian clan, the Mulan family's foundation was indeed quite impressive. In addition, the remaining Mulan family members were at least double crown champions. Every one of them was stronger than the stormy wave Saint's son. At this moment, the Triple Crown champion glanced at Shui Ruo and frowned. "Get out of the way. This isn't a place for you." Shui Ruo's expression was a little awkward. She stood stiffly on the spot and lowered her gaze. Seeing this, Mulan Yu said, "She's also a candidate to enter the door of the ancient god." "What? Sister Yu, did I hear wrongly? This little girl isn't even a double crown champion. Her aura is also very weak. What right does someone like her have to occupy our Mulan family's slot?" The woman said in a sharp voice. Her name was Mulan Fong. Her strength was ranked in the top 5 of the Mulan family. Because of this, she had developed an arrogant personality. Not to mention outsiders, even the Mulan family's disciples were reprimanded by her. Before Mulan Yu could say anything, the Baishur saint took the opportunity to say, "Ha, that's all thanks to Dugubai. He wanted to protect this person's slot." "What right does he have to do that?" Mulan Fong looked at Yi Guchen with her beautiful eyes. "It's because he said that as long as this little girl is allowed to join, Tuoba Shang will be handed over to him." The Black Tiger saint sneered. Hearing this, Mulan Fong's expression froze. Then, she covered her mouth with her hand and laughed uncontrollably. Ridiculous. Too ridiculous. Mulan Fong only felt that it was ridiculous. How strong was Tuoba Shang after coming out of the life and death cave? She didn't know, but she knew that Tuoba Shang didn't need to spend much effort to deal with the Triple Crown champion. As for Dugubai? Sorry, Mulan Fong had never heard of this name. Even if she knew that he was comparable to the Triple Crown champion, Mulan Fong didn't think that Yi Guchen could deal with Tuoba Shang. Beside Mulan Fong, the other Triple Crown champion, Mulan Sun, frowned and said, "Sister Yu, you've made a mistake this time." Just because of a ridiculous promise, he had wasted a precious spot. Mulan Fong and Mulan Sun both thought that Mulan Yu had lost her mind. Even their impression of Yi Guchen was extremely bad. "This is my decision," Mulan Yu said. She didn't have much confidence. After all, she was just giving Yi Guchen face. She didn't think that he could really deal with Tuoba Shang. However, this made Mulan Fong and Mulan Sun even more impatient with Yi Guchen. "I suggest that it's not too late to change the person now. Such a burden will only delay us," Mulan Fong said in a sharp tone. "I agree." Mulan Sun nodded. With the 2 Triple Crown champions taking the lead, the other members of the Mulan family looked at each other. Mulan Xiao opened his mouth slightly. He wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Shui Ruo lowered her head and didn't say a word. Yi Guchen glanced at Shui Ruo from the corner of his eye and saw tears seeping out of the corner of her eyes. After all, she was a 14 or 15-year-old girl. How could she not feel wronged after being humiliated like this? While Mulan Fong and the others were chattering, Yi Guchen took a step forward with an indifferent expression. "What do you mean by this?" Mulan Fong said coldly. "You don't agree with my decision?" Yi Guchen's tone was indifferent. "So what if I do?" Mulan Fong puffed out her chest fearlessly. Although she knew that Yi Guchen was the Triple Crown champion, she was also the Triple Crown champion. So she wasn't afraid. "If you can make me take a step back, Shui Ruo and I will withdraw together." Yi Guchen's cold voice resounded through the crowd. He was tired of Mulan Fong and the others' arrogance and condescension. You don't agree? I'll beat you until you do. Chapter 551. Yi Guchen's words reverberated throughout the entire area. Not only the people around him, but even Muranbo, the elders of the Mulan family, the Stormy Wave Saint, and the other saints who had failed the selection heard him. In the eyes of others, Yi Guchen was the perfect example of arrogance. Yi Guchen did not think that his attitude was arrogant because he did not take Mulan Fong and the others seriously. However, in the eyes of others, Yi Guchen was also a Triple Crown champion. How could he speak to Mulan Fong with such an attitude? Moreover, this was the Mulan family's territory. Challenging the Triple Crown champion of the Mulan family in their territory was simply courting death. Dugubai, you've really lost your mind? The Stormy Wave Saint was secretly delighted. He could not wait for Yi Guchen to lose his spot. That way, he would be able to replace him. What a joke. Why would Mulan Yue choose such an arrogant person? An elder of the Mulan family frowned and said coldly, "Heh, this person is quite interesting." Miranbo did not mind and smiled faintly. On the other side, Mulan Fong could not believe her ears. She was so angry that she laughed and said, "Are you serious?" Yi Guchen did not say anything else. He calmly took a step forward, clearly prepared for battle. Dugubai, why don't we just forget about it? Mulan Yue sighed. She did not expect things to develop to this stage. She was very satisfied with Yi Guchen's performance in the 3 tests. Therefore, she did not want Yi Guchen to withdraw. Heh, Sister Yu, since this person is so confident, how can we let him down? Mulan Fong would not let this opportunity go. She wanted everyone to know that the Triple Crown champion of the barbarian family was not to be underestimated. In the next moment, Mulan Fong directly attacked. Dense totem power gathered in her palm and slammed it towards Yi Guchen's chest. If Yi Guchen didn't dodge this palm strike, he would be struck in the chest. Even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. It could be seen that Mulan Fong was really angry and wanted to teach Yi Guchen a lesson. Yi Guchen was expressionless as he watched Mulan Fong charge at him. He also stretched out a hand and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Vigorous and surging totem power gathered in his tendons and arms, and then fiercely blasted out. The air screeched violently as it collided with Mulan Fong's palm. At the moment of collision, the corner of Mulan Fong's mouth that had faintly curled into a cold and arrogant smile suddenly changed. The arrogant expression on his face changed completely. An incomparably vigorous force was transmitted from her palm, causing her entire arm to emit cracking sounds. Her entire arm bones seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Mulan Fong retreated a dozen steps, her entire arm trembling slightly. This was after Yi Guchen held back a little because he was worried about the Mulan family. Otherwise, this punch would cripple Mulan Fong's entire arm. Silence. The surrounding Mulan family's disciples swallowed their saliva. One punch. With just one punch, the Triple Crown King Mulan Fong was forced to retreat. Everyone looked at Yi Guchen in unison, their eyes filled with bewilderment. Could it be that Mulan Fong held back? Those Mulan family's elders who were vaguely angry were also slightly stunned. Oh! Mulanbo looked deeply at Yi Guchen. This Triple Crown King seemed to have some foundation. Xiao Fong, what are you doing? Why did you hold back? Just teach him a lesson. At the side, Mulan Xuan, who was also a Triple Crown King, frowned slightly. He subconsciously ignored Yi Guchen's strength and thought that Mulan Fong didn't use her full strength. Hearing this, Mulan Fong's face was full of shame and embarrassment, with some annoyance. Indeed, she didn't hold back. Her opponent was too strong. However, under such circumstances, she couldn't say it out loud. That would be too embarrassing. Where did this brat come from? Even Mulan Fong couldn't believe that she was forced to retreat with one punch. Xiao Fong, teach him a lesson. Mulan Xuan said. Mulan Fong took a deep breath and calmed down. She thought that she might have been too careless. Again! This time, Mulan Fong didn't hold back. She directly displayed the 3 great totems and her aura rose steadily. Mu King's seal. Mu Lanfang shouted in a delicate voice. She formed a seal with her hands, and an ancient totem seal was formed in front of her. Then, the totem seal bombarded Yiguchen. It's our Mulan family's unique skill, Mu King's seal. Many Mulan family's disciples couldn't help but exclaim. This martial skill was extremely powerful. They didn't expect Mu Lanfang to display it in a sparring match. That's more like it. Mu Lanxuan nodded slightly. He thought that Mu Lanfang was holding back just now. Now, she finally showed her true strength. Nonsense. Mu Lanyue's face darkened. It was just a sparring match. How could she display such a unique skill? However, facing such a powerful attack, Yiguchen took a deep breath and secretly gathered the power of the ancestor totem in his body. Then, he added a trace of the power of the ancient god tactic. Suddenly, a terrifying power gathered in Yiguchen's body and erupted like a volcano. One punch. Yiguchen threw out another punch. However, the power of this punch was far stronger than before. Even the air was rippling with transparent ripples. Wherever the fist passed, the air would tremble. Bang! They exchanged blows again. Violent airwaves spread out in all directions. Compared to before, the commotion was much bigger. However, in the endless smoke, there was a scream. It was a woman's scream. Mu Lanxuan's heart skipped a beat. Mu Lanfang's delicate body flew out like a rag doll. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, rolling in the dust. Mu Lanfang's face was covered in dust and her hair was disheveled. The whole place was silent. If it was said that Mu Lanfang had held back during the first exchange, what about this time? Who would dare to say that Mu Lanfang had held back when she used the Mu King seal? At this moment, Mu Lanxuan looked at Mu Lanfang in disbelief. She had used the Mu King's seal and still lost? Mu Lanfang's face was covered in dust and her face was red. She stared at Yiguchen. She was angry. She was furious. She was the Triple Crown champion of the barbarian family. She was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She was naturally more noble than ordinary barbarians. But now, in front of that indifferent young man from beginning to end, she was as insignificant as dust. Dugubai, this is the Mulan family. How dare you treat me like this? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to leave? Mu Lanfang couldn't hold it in anymore and screamed in anger. She couldn't win, so she started to use the Mulan family's name. The dragoness and the others were also worried. This was the Mulan family. Enough! At this moment, a deep and cold voice resounded in the whole place. Mu Lanfang's face froze when she heard the voice. Her body trembled like a quail. The person who spoke was the patriarch of the Mulan family, Mulan Bo. Chapter 552. Muranbo was the patriarch of the Mulan clan and a divine dwelling expert. It could be said that in the entire Mulan clan, apart from the elders of the previous generation who were in seclusion, Muranbo had the most authority. No one in the Mulan clan dared to go against Muranbo's decision. At this moment, Mu Lanbo walked over slowly and looked at Mu Lanfang with disappointment in his eyes. He didn't expect his junior disciple to be so unbearable. As the saying goes, you can lose but not lose. If you win, you have to win beautifully. If you lose, you have to lose decently. Mu Lanfang was like a shrew the moment she lost. She even started to use the Mulan clan's name to threaten others. It could be seen how narrow-minded she was. Even Muranbo, the patriarch, couldn't stand it anymore. Master? Seeing Muranbo, Mu Lanfang, who was still throwing a tantrum, instantly lowered her head and shivered all over. Muranbo's prestige in the Mulan clan was unmatched. You've really given the Mulan clan face, Muranbo said indifferently, but anyone could tell that he was being sarcastic. Patriarch, this person is too arrogant and doesn't put the Mulan clan in his eyes. Mu Lanfang was still quibbling. Do you think I'm blind? Muranbo frowned. Mu Lanfang was the one who was overbearing from the start. And Yiguchen, if not for Mu Lanfang's overbearing attitude, he wouldn't have treated him with such an attitude. Mu Lanfang lowered her head and didn't dare to speak anymore. After returning from the gate of the ancient gods, you'll be punished to enter the mountain of blades and sea of flames for half a year. The 5 elements divine item will be deducted for half a year, Muranbo said indifferently. Patriarch. Mu Lanfang was anxious, and her beautiful face turned pale. The mountain of blades and sea of flames was a place where the Mulan clan punished their clansmen. It was incomparably torturous. The most fatal punishment was that the 5 elements divine item would be deducted for half a year. This meant that Mu Lanfang wouldn't be able to obtain cultivation resources for half a year. This punishment was already extremely severe. Mu Lanxuan originally wanted to say a few words, but now he completely shut his mouth, afraid of being implicated. Mu Lanfang's face was dejected, and she was filled with regret. Her gaze towards Yi Guchen was filled with resentment. But at the moment, she couldn't do anything to Yi Guchen. Little friend Dugu, my Mulan family has made a fool of themselves. Mulan Bo looked at Yi Guchen and smiled faintly. Yi Guchen nodded slightly. This Mulan family head is quite reasonable. It was also because of such a person that they were able to contend with the Tuoba family. I hope that little friend Dugu can help our Muran clan and you heir in this door of the ancient god operation, Muran Bo said slowly. Of course. Yi Guchen cupped his hands slightly. If you respect him, he will respect you tenfold. Next, after everyone made some preparations, they boarded the flying ship and prepared to head to the 5-element divine temple. Along the way, Mu Lanfang, Mu Lanxuan, and the others did not provoke Yi Guchen. On the contrary, Mu Lanyue became more and more curious about Yi Guchen's strength. After all, Yi Guchen was able to send Mu Lanfang flying with one punch. Not everyone had the strength to do so. Of course, Mu Lanyue was not confident that she could defeat Yi Guchen if she fought against Tuoba Shang. It took them several days to get there. In the entire land of 5 elements, not only the Mulan family, but also the Tuoba family and various large tribes were heading towards the depths of the land of 5 elements. After a few days, Yi Guchen and the others had already reached the deepest part of the land of 5 elements. The deeper they went, the denser the aura of the great desolate era became. Finally, another 2 days had passed. Yi Guchen stood on the flying ship and looked around. There was a desolate plain in the distance. The ground was filled with ravines as if it was a battlefield left behind from ancient times. At the same time, there was a faint black aura between heaven and earth. It was like a demonic aura that made people feel uncomfortable. Yi Guchen frowned slightly when he felt the faint black demonic aura. Because the ancient god's tactic in his body was involuntarily circulating. What is this aura? Why is it reacting to the ancient god's tactic? Yi Guchen pondered. But he did not know much about this place, so he had no clue at the moment. At this moment, on the boundless plain, suddenly, a mountain appeared. It was an incomparably huge mountain. The whole mountain was divided into 5 colors, corresponding to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The mountain was more than 10,000 feet high and towered into the sky. And on the top of the mountain, there was an incomparably simple and magnificent temple. The roof was glazed, the temple building, and there were many barbarian totems and stone pillars towering in the middle. It gave off an ancient and grand feeling. Is that the 5 elements temple? Yi Guchen's eyes flickered. He could vaguely sense the obscure auras within the 5 elements divine temple. They were all incomparably powerful. There were many divine dwelling stage auras among them, like crouching dragons. As expected of the barbarians' sacred land. Yi Guchen sighed inwardly. There were probably no less than 10 divine dwelling experts in the 5 elements temple. It had far surpassed any of the 7 great forces. It was no wonder that the 7 great forces and the Saint Origin Empire had not been able to eradicate the barbarian race for so many years. Because the barbarian race's foundation was the 5 elements temple. Not long after, the flying boat carrying Yi Guchen and the others also landed on the top of the mountain. Although the top of the mountain did not look big, but the mountain was huge. When the entire top of the mountain approached, it was more like a vast platform. Its area was probably enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. After Yi Guchen and the others landed on the top of the mountain, the dragon girl said, "This mountain is called the Five Elements Mountain, and is also the barbarian race's sacred mountain. The Five Elements Temple is located on the top of the mountain, standing proudly at the peak of the mountains." Even the dragon girl praised it, showing its status in the barbarian race. Yi Guchen could not help but sigh. Miranbo led them to the gathering place. At the same time, other great tribes also arrived one after another. The Five Elements Barbarian Tribe, Soul Barbarian Tribe, Bone Barbarian Tribe and other great tribes all had many people come to watch the ceremony. Even Mo Tao of the Water Tribe had followed along. When he saw Yi Guchen, resentment faintly flashed in his eyes. The reason he came was to see Yi Guchen's miserable state of being crushed by Tuoba Shang. The other great tribes also had strange expressions on their faces when they saw the Miranbo family arrive. Among them, the Metal Tribe, Fire Tribe, Earth Tribe, Soul Barbarian Tribe and Bone Barbarian Tribe were the most shocked, because they were in the Tuoba family's camp and belonged to the pro-war faction. The patriarchs of the Water Tribe, Wood Tribe, Barbarian Tribe and other great tribes all had a heavy expression, because the Miranbo family's chances of winning were too low when the ancient God Gate opened. When the Miranbo family was suppressed, the other great tribes would also be implicated. Among them, the patriarch of the Barbarian Tribe secretly glanced at the Lion and Tiger Saints. Sensing the strange gazes around him, Miranbo's expression turned grave. Mu Lanyue's eyes faintly revealed a worried expression. At this moment, another group of flying boats landed on the top of the mountain. The people of the Tuoba family's camp had arrived. Chapter 553. The Tuoba family's flying boats were much more numerous than the Muron family's. The head of the Tuoba family, Tuoba Outyin, stood proudly on the leading flying boat with an extraordinary aura. Beside him was a group of Tuoba family's disciples. The gray-haired Tuoba Shang with the aura of a tiger and wolf was naturally very eye-catching. Yi Guchen also looked over. Compared to before, Tuoba Shang's aura was much stronger. Although he did not release it openly, the faint pressure made the saints and saintesses hold their breaths. There were many hideous scars on Tuoba Shang's body and face. It was obvious that he had gone through a hellish trial. Tuoba Shang is so strong. His aura is much stronger than before. Scary. I don't think I can even last one round against him. A double crown champion's face was slightly pale. On the Muron family's side, Mu Lanyue and the others' faces were also a little gloomy. Tuoba Shang gave them too much pressure. However, Mu Lanfang, Lion Tiger Two Saints, and the others who had a grudge against Yi Guchen had a playful smile on their faces. After all, Yi Guchen had said that he could leave Tuoba Shang to him. Big brother Dugu, this Tuoba Shang looks so scary. Shui Rua said worriedly. Don't worry. Yi Guchen said indifferently. This was more interesting. Let's see how long you can pretend. Mu Lanfang said in a low voice. Behind Tuoba Shang, there were more than 10 saints and saintesses of the Tuoba family. Their auras were extraordinary, and there were a few Triple Crown champions among them. On the flying boat, Yi Guchen saw many old acquaintances. Lei Juyo, Golden Sun Saint's son, Feng Xiaotian and the others were among them. Compared to the ancient desolate arena, Lei Juyo and the others' auras were much stronger now. Yi Guchen knew that it was because of the life and death intent. However, the life and death intent was not that easy to refine. Otherwise, Lei Juyo and the others would have already reached the life and death chamber. Even so, the current strength of Lei Juyo and the others was no longer the same as before. Yi Guchen would not make such a low-level mistake of underestimating the enemy. After glancing at Lei Juyo and the rest, Yi Guchen fixed his gaze on a figure. It was a dark-skinned and skinny young man from the Barbarian tribe. He stood in the middle of Lei Juyo and the others. He did not stand out, but his aura was not weaker than theirs. That's Mo Yi. Not far away, Mu Lanyue noticed Yi Guchen's attention and said. Yi Guchen took a deep look at Mo Yi and nodded slightly. Interesting, with the arrival of the Tuoba family, the atmosphere outside the Five-Element Temple suddenly became tense. After all, These two barbarian families represented two major camps of the barbarian race: the pro-war faction and the pacifist faction. As for the Five Elements Temple, it tended to be neutral. However, whichever side's juniors were more outstanding and powerful, the Five Elements Temple would naturally lean towards that side. If Tuoba Shang became the Five Crown King, he would immediately receive the full support of the Five Elements Temple. At that time, the Mulan family would only be suppressed. However, it seemed that the Mulan family situation was not good. Haha, Miranbo, how have you been? Tuoba Outyin seemed to be in a good mood. Haha, Tuoba Outyin, looks like you've already walked out from your previous failure. Miranbo retorted. Tuoba Outyin's eyes immediately darkened when he heard that. Miranbo was referring to the ancient barbarian spiritual slaughtering array that Tuoba Shang activated in the ancient barbarian arena. If the mysterious Five Crown King did not appear, the Tuoba family's plan would have succeeded. At that time, the Five Elements Temple would very likely lean towards the Tuoba family. However, it was still ruined by Five Crown King. This matter made Tuoba Outyin extremely angry. What made him even angrier was that Tuoba Shang was defeated miserably by Five Crown King. This caused a split within the Five Elements Temple. Some of the elders even wanted to find Five Crown King. This was extremely disadvantageous to the Tuoba family. Therefore, everyone in the Tuoba family wanted to get rid of the mysterious Five Crown King. As for Tuoba Shang, he directly entered the life and death cave to wash away his previous humiliation. Humph, Miranbo, don't try to win a battle of words. The opening of the door of the ancient gods this time means that your Miranbo family is destined to lose everything. Tuoba Outyin said coldly. Don't be too full of yourself. Otherwise, you'll be asking for humiliation. Miranbo said in a deep voice. Haha, do you mean that your daughter, Murinyu, can surpass Shang? Or is that Five Crown King in your camp? Tuoba Outyin sneered. Once those words were spoken, the patriarchs, elders, saints and saintesses all looked towards the Miranbo family. If that was the case, then the Tuoba family would not be in the picture. However, it was obvious that Tuoba Outyin was mocking them. Miranbo's expression was also ugly. The people of the Miranbo family all became silent. After all, Muranfang was also a member of the Miranbo family. She was somewhat embarrassed and could not help but mutter, "There is no Five Crown King, but there is an ignorant fanatic." But who is it? Tuoba Outyin's ears were very sharp. Muranfang's face twitched. She did not expect to be heard. The surrounding people's gazes all turned towards Muranfang. Who else? Isn't it him? Muranfang was a little guilty as she pointed at Yiguchen. Yiguchen frowned. Muranfang wanted to make him the target of everyone. It's you. At this moment, a voice full of anger suddenly sounded. The person who spoke was Yi Guchen's defeated opponent, Tuoba Lai. Tuoba Lai was panting heavily. His eyes were slightly bloodshot. It was obvious that he was still brooding over the humiliation of being defeated by Yi Guchen with a single punch. Is that the Dragon Lady's husband? I heard that he's a Triple Crown King. He's so powerful that he easily defeated Tuoba Lai. Although the news about Yi Guchen was not spread widely, there were still some people who heard about it. At this moment, their eyes were filled with shock. Oh, interesting. I wonder how arrogant this little brother is? Tuoba Outyin said indifferently. He did not care at all. Muranfang sneered. She was not afraid of causing trouble for Yi Guchen. She said, "What else?" He said that he alone is enough to deal with Tuoba Shang. What? Muranfang's words stunned everyone. They had seen arrogant people, but they had never seen such an arrogant person. Tuoba Shang, the Quadruple Crown King, was not someone who could be provoked by anyone. Not to mention the Quadruple Crown King, Tuoba Shang was now the strongest person among the younger generation of the barbarian tribe. Muranfang! Miranbo shouted in a deep voice. Muranfang immediately curled up. However, her gaze towards Yi Guchen was filled with mockery and the joy of revenge. You have embarrassed me and will be punished by the tribe. I will make you the target of everyone and humiliate you. Muranfang thought happily. A trace of extreme coldness flashed past Yiguchen's eyes. He wanted Murenfang to pay the price for what she had done. However, as soon as he said those words, almost everyone in the surrounding looked at Yiguchen as if they were looking at an idiot. On the other hand, Tuoba Shang's expression was cold. He did not care about Yiguchen at all. He said coldly, "A frog at the bottom of the well does not know how big the sea is." In short, no matter what, Dugubai's name would be spread throughout the barbarian tribe along with his ignorance and arrogance. Just as Yiguchen became the target of everyone. Within the Five Elements Temple, the sound of bells could be heard. A group of people slowly walked out of the Five Elements Temple. The person leading them was the great elder of the Five Elements Temple, Wanyan Lan. Chapter 554. The Elders Guild was in charge of the Five Elements Temple. The leader of the Elders Guild was the first elder, Wanyan Lan. Yiguchen glanced over. The first elder, Wanyan Lan, was wearing a simple gray robe. His face was wrinkled and his hair was white. He looked a little old. He held a dragon-headed walking stick in his hand and walked with a trembling gait. He looked old. But when Wanyan Lan walked out, outside the Five Elements Temple, all the barbarian people, including the masters of ancient barbarian families like Tuoba Outyin and Muran Bo, bowed respectfully. They did not dare to act rashly. The first elder, Wanyan Lan, was the pillar of the barbarian race. He had once followed the legendary Five-Crown King and was now in charge of the Elders Guild of the Five Elements Temple. Although he rarely showed himself, his prestige in the barbarian race was unquestionable. Yiguchen's eyes grew solemn. He felt an extremely strong pressure from Wanyan Lan's body. The cultivation level of the first elder of the Five Elements Temple was most likely one of the top in the divine dwelling stage. No wonder he's the pillar of the barbarian race, Yiguchen thought. However, Yiguchen also felt a strong aura of old age from Wanyan Lan. It was obvious that the blood and chi of the strongest barbarian race expert had withered and his life force was exhausted. This kind of aging could not be made up for by quasi-saint medicines. Even if it was a saint medicine, it could only be temporarily delayed. It was likely that only by completely changing his bloodline could Wanyan Lan extend his life. At this moment, Wanyan Lan's gaze swept around and focused onto Obashang. My bloodline has collapsed, but the successor Five-Crown King has not appeared. Who will support the barbarian race in the future? Wanyan Lan sighed inwardly. In the Five Elements Temple, although there were divine dwelling experts like the Heaven Barbarian King, they were still weaker than him. If Wanyan Lan died, the Seven Great Forces and the Saint Origin Empire would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Therefore, Wanyan Lan was also eager to cultivate the next leader of the barbarian race. That was Five-Crown King. He had always placed his hopes onto Obashang. However, the appearance of the true Five-Crown King successor made Wanyan Lan unusually happy. However, in the end, that Five-Crown King was an enemy that was hard to predict. He was even opposing to Obashang. This made Wanyan Lan extremely disappointed. Now that Five-Crown King had disappeared, the barbarian race's only hope was placed onto Obashang. I hope that Tuobashang will be able to obtain our ancestors' inheritance from the tomb of the gods and devils. Wanyan Lan sighed. Beside him stood a row of elders. One of the red-robed elders said, "Don't worry, Grand Elder. When the door of the ancient gods opens this time, Tuobashang will definitely not let you down and obtain the ancestors' inheritance." He was an elder of the Council of Elders, but he also had another identity. He was the supreme elder of the Tuoba family, an existence of the divine dwelling stage. Although his strength was far inferior to Wanyan Lan and the Heaven Barbarian King, he was still a divine dwelling expert. As soon as he said that, a green-robed elder on the other side snorted disdainfully. "The door of the ancient gods hasn't opened yet. It's not good for you to speak like that." The green-robed old man was the grand elder of the Mulan family. "That's enough," Wanyan Lan said indifferently. He was already used to the confrontation between the elders of the two great families. But this time, If Tuoba Shang could really obtain the inheritance, he would most likely give the power to the Tuoba family. Everyone, the reopening of the door of the ancient gods is a grand occasion for the barbarian race. For the barbarian race to prosper, we need fresh blood from the younger generation. Back then, Lord Five Crown King appeared out of nowhere and shocked everyone. Everyone bowed down to him and he was invincible. Wan Yanlan's words made the blood of all the barbarian race people boil. So this time, I've decided that whoever can obtain the ancestors' inheritance in the door of the ancient gods and become the next Five Crown King will be the young king of the barbarian race. Wan Yanlan's words silenced the noisy atmosphere at the scene. Everyone's face was full of disbelief. What was a young king? It was a young king, which almost represented the next leader of the barbarian race. The Five Elements Temple would also fully support this young king. No matter what the young king's background was or what his identity was, as long as he could obtain the support of the Five Elements Temple, he would immediately become the most honorable existence in the barbarian race. The young king of the barbarian race was the most honorable. Boom! After the silence, there was an explosion. Endless clamor spread in all directions. Almost every saint and saintess of the barbarian race was excited and their faces were flushed red. That was a young king. It was more honorable than the double crown king, the triple crown king, or the quadruple crown king. The young king even had the power to control the will of the Five Elements Temple. It could be said that whoever could become the young king would be the one who unified the barbarian race. Tuoba Shang's muscles tensed up and his eyes shone with a dazzling light. Wasn't that what he was after? He wanted to become a king and lead the barbarian race to conquer the world. This time I'll be the young king. Tuoba Shang's tone was resolute. The eyes of Lei Juyo, Golden Sun Saint, and the others were also shining. Although Tuoba Shang was like a mountain, they still had a chance. Especially after comprehending the life and death essence, their cultivation had become stronger than before. On the Mulan family's side, everyone was excited. Who didn't want to be the young king? Yi Guchen was the calmest. He didn't care about power, let alone the power of the barbarian race. He was only here for the sacred medicine and the ancient god's opportunity. As for the young king, Yi Guchen didn't have any thoughts about it. Looking at the excited crowd, Wan Yanlan nodded slightly. Next, I'll open the door of the ancient god, Wan Yanlan said. Everyone followed Wan Yanlan and the other elders into the Five Elements Temple. The Five Elements Temple was grotesque and variegated. It was filled with a wild, ancient, and mysterious aura. As soon as Yi Guchen entered, he felt a sense of familiarity. It was the aura of the ancient god. As expected, Yi Guchen's eyes lit up. At the same time, Yi Guchen also felt a faint demonic aura. The demonic aura was the same as the one Yi Guchen had felt around the Five Elements Mountain. As for this demonic chi, it seemed to be incompatible with the ancient god's aura, and it seemed to be at odds with him. Yi Guchen didn't know much about the secrets of the barbarian race. He could only take one step at a time. In the end, everyone came to the center of the Five Elements Temple. There was a vast and dark hole in the center of the temple. Yi Guchen was slightly surprised. The Five Elements Mountain was hollow like a volcano. The door of the ancient god is at the bottom of the mountain, the dragon lady said softly. Wan Yanlan and the other elders led everyone down the stairs at the edge of the hole. After walking for a long time, they finally arrived at the bottom. They were surrounded by colorful lights. They were all strange minerals and stones. In the center of the ground, there was a thick stone door that was almost 100 feet tall. It was simple and majestic. Is this the door of the ancient god? Yi Guchen sighed. Chapter 555. Yi Guchen couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. What he saw before him was simply too shocking. Within the enormous Five Elements Mountain, there was a 100-meter-tall stone door that exuded an ancient and desolate aura. This scene was incomparably shocking. Not only Yi Guchen, but most of the people present who had never seen the door of the ancient god were also shocked. Even those who were fortunate enough to see it once or twice couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when they saw it again. This was the relic left behind by the barbarian tribe's ancestors, the door of the ancient god. It's a 100-meter-tall door. Could it really be used by the ancient gods? Yiguchen recalled the towering figure of the ancient gods standing on the desolate land. He felt that this door was made for the ancient gods. How could mortals use such a huge door? Everyone, the true barbarian tribe warriors, have been tempered by blood and fire. Therefore, killing is not forbidden in the door of the ancient god. You can just attack, Wan Yanlan said loudly. Hearing this, the eyes of the people who were about to enter the door of the ancient god turned cold. The identity of the young king was too tempting. If it was before, they would have some scruples because of their identity. For example, even if Lei Jiuyou and the others could kill the members of the Mulan family, they wouldn't really kill them because they were afraid of the Mulan family. However, it was different now. If they succeeded, they would become the young king. There was no need to care about the Mulan family. Of course, the most promising candidate to become the young king was Tuobashang. Door of the ancient god, open. Everyone saw Wan Yanlan and the other elders of the 5 Elements Divine Temple surrounding the door of the ancient god and releasing their totem power. There were the 5 totem powers of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. At this moment, the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade in Yiguchen's origin ring suddenly trembled. Yiguchen's eyes were filled with doubt. The 5 divine beasts' ancient jade was obtained at the same time as the 5-colored golden core. Yiguchen didn't know what use the 5 divine beasts' ancient jade had. It seemed to be an ordinary ancient jade. However, it seemed that it had something to do with the door of the ancient god. Boom! Following the ceremony of Wan Yanlan and the others, the door of the ancient god, which seemed to have been silent since ancient times, also started to rumble and tremble. On the stone door, various ancient totems, symbols, and runes were emitting rays of light. Inside the door of the ancient god, the fog tumbled and the space shook, setting off waves of fluctuations. You can enter, Wan Yanlan said. The Toba family, the Mulan family, and the foreign aide that they had recruited were all standing in front of the ancient gods. The divine condor did not follow Yiguchen because demonic beasts were not allowed in the door of the ancient gods. Yiguchen, Mulan Yue should have already said that there are some dangerous places inside the gate of the ancient god. They are filled with a special kind of demonic energy. If you absorb too much of it, you will go crazy and become an ape-like existence. You have to be careful. Dragoness lowered her voice. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Mulan Yue had mentioned it before. He had already sensed the demonic energy. However, it was obviously not effective outside the door of the ancient god. Inside the door of the ancient god, however, it was so dense that it was fatal and could drive people crazy. In the next moment, everyone who had entered the door of the ancient god stepped into it. Yiguchen suddenly felt that the world was spinning, as if the space was twisting. After a moment, it also seemed like a long time. When Yiguchen opened his eyes again, he saw an ancient land. Ravines crisscrossed, and it was extremely dilapidated, as if it was pieced together by countless fragments of the earth. Is this the space inside the door of the ancient god? Yiguchen looked around. He did not see anyone else around him. It was obvious that the space twisting just now had scattered these people in all directions. Inside the door of the ancient god was a special space secret realm, similar to the Void Sword realm. However, Yiguchen could clearly feel that the door of the ancient god was much older than the Void Sword realm. After all, the existence of the ancient god clan had far exceeded Yiguchen's imagination. According to Mulan Yue, although this place is not small, it is not big either. Yiguchen's eyes flickered. Before entering, Mulan Yue had already warned them. After entering the door of the ancient god, if there were no other opportunities, they could directly go into the deepest part of the tomb of the gods and demons. This was because the greatest opportunity in the door of the ancient god, the bloodline inheritance of the ancestors, was in the tomb of the gods and demons. It seems that the opportunity of the ancient god is in the tomb of the gods and demons. I wonder if the sacred medicine is also in there. Yiguchen secretly guessed. His primary goal was the sacred medicine. Secondly, the opportunity of the ancient god's inheritance. After thinking about it, Yiguchen also rushed toward the deepest part of the tomb of the gods and demons. After about 2 hours, the ravines in front of them suddenly bulged, and a valley could be vaguely seen. There was a burst of spiritual medicine fragrance coming from it. Yiguchen's eyes narrowed, and without hesitation he flashed away. Although the tomb of the gods and demons was the greatest place of opportunity in the door of the ancient god. But there were also many other places of treasure scattered everywhere. That valley, could it be the Valley of 10,000 Medicine? Yiguchen thought. Mu Lanyue had already told Yiguchen and the others some places before. The Valley of 10,000 Medicine was a treasure place full of spiritual medicine inside the door of the ancient god. And because the door of the ancient god was rarely opened, the spiritual medicine in the Valley of 10,000 Medicine was also rarely picked. There were all kinds of precious medicine, and there was no lack of quasi-sacred medicine. I wonder if there are any sacred medicines in there? Yiguchen thought, and without hesitation he directly turned into an afterimage and rushed over. In the Valley of 10,000 Medicine, there was a burst of fragrance, and spiritual medicine was everywhere. There was even no lack of precious medicine. If it were in the outside world, it would definitely be picked clean in a short time. But because it was inside the door of the ancient god, it was preserved. Yiguchen casually glanced at it and did not care, continuing to go deeper. He had the bronze cauldron, and ordinary precious medicine was not important to him. Only quasi-sacred medicine and sacred medicine would pay attention to it. Not long after, Yiguchen went deep into the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. There were fewer and fewer precious medicines around, but the quality was getting higher. At this moment, a delicate voice suddenly came from afar. "You are joining hands, aren't you shameless?" Hearing this voice, Yiguchen's eyes flashed with a dark light. He went forward and saw a girl with green hair and green eyes being besieged by 2 people. The girl was the wooden bell spirit. And of the 2 people besieging her, one was covered in blood armor and looked ferocious. The other person was a Triple Crown champion of the Tuoba family. Looking at this situation, the wooden bell spirit seemed to be in an extremely passive situation. Well, the one in blood armor should be the Blood-Bone Saint of the Bone Barbarian tribe, and the Triple Crown champion should be Tuoba Tian of the Tuoba family. Mu Lanyue had already told Yiguchen the names and characteristics of everyone in the Tuoba family camp. Therefore, Yiguchen was able to recognize him at a glance. The Blood-Bone Saint of the Bone Barbarian tribe was not weak, comparable to the Triple Crown champion. Tuoba Tian was also one of the best among the Triple Crown champions. No wonder the wooden bell spirit was forced to this point. But since Yiguchen saw it, he did not mind helping it. Boom! Without hesitation, Yiguchen directly attacked. Divine power surged and his aura surged. Dugwubai! Seeing this, the wooden bell spirit's eyes flashed with joy. The Blood-Bone Saint and Tuoba Tian's faces darkened. Chapter 556. With a hong sound, the wooden bell spirit blasted out with an attack, leaving the battlefield and joining up with Yiguchen. On the other side, the Blood-Bone Saint and Tuoba Tian stood together. Yiguchen looked around and suddenly found a gully not far away. Light shot into the sky and medicine fragrance filled the air. Smelling it made people feel like they were floating in the air. Saint-level medicine? Yiguchen said. That aura was at least from a saint-level medicine. Even a supreme treasure medicine couldn't release that kind of aura. Yes, I'm from the wood race and have the sky-reaching ancient tree. I can sense the aura of all kinds of herbs, so I followed it here. Who would have thought that these 2 would secretly follow me and want to take the fruits of my labor? The wooden bell spirit's face was angry. Oh! Yiguchen didn't expect the wooden bell spirit to have this kind of ability. This way, the wooden bell spirit could help when they found the saint-level medicine. But he still had to solve the problem at hand. Humph, the Blood-Bone Saint said coldly. The treasure inside the door of ancient god can be obtained by whoever is stronger. Are you still so naive? Beside him, Tuoba Tian glanced at Yiguchen and said, "You're that arrogant and ignorant Dugubai. You actually want to fight brother Tuoba Shang. Don't think that you're invincible just because you defeated Tuoba Lai." Tuoba Tian's tone sounded like he didn't care about Tuoba Lai. Even though they were both triple champions, there was still a gap between their abilities. "You talk as much nonsense as Tuoba Lai," Yiguchen said indifferently. "You're looking for death." Tuoba Tian shouted coldly. The totem power in his body erupted like a volcano. Yiguchen measured it and found that his totem power was indeed much stronger than Tuoba Lai's. Sky-breaking golden claw. Tuoba Tian attacked. His palm curled like an eagle's claw, shooting out golden light. It streaked across the air and made a hissing sound. This move originated from one of his 3 supreme totems, the golden-feathered godly eagle. The totem power in Yiguchen's body surged, and the aura around him surged. He did not use any divine weapons or techniques, but directly punched out. The combination of the impeccable Vajra body and the ancient divine art allowed Yiguchen's physical body to be able to take on mystical pattern divine weapons head-on. Although Tuoba Tian's move was powerful, it was still unable to shatter the mystical rune divine weapon. Boom! When the two collided, a shocking shockwave burst forth. Tuoba Tian's expression changed slightly when he felt the huge force coming from his palm. He retreated more than a dozen steps before he was able to dissipate the huge force. "Your physical body." Tuoba Tian's tone was grave as he stared at Yiguchen. There was actually someone capable of taking on his attack with their physical body. This had truly surpassed his expectations. Yiguchen didn't reply. Instead, he stepped forward and attacked again. At the same time, Yiguchen was also sensing the changes in the 5 elements Dao. Comprehending the changes between the 5 elements through actual combat was clearly easier to comprehend the true essence. However, with the concealment of the wave illusion secret technique, Yiguchen's methods were well hidden. Before he obtained the divine medicine, Yiguchen could not reveal his identity. On the other side, the wooden bell spirit also took out the towering ancient tree and fought with the blood-bone saint. The blood-bone saint's totem was a blood-red mastiff. Although it was a mastiff, its body was no different from a lion, and its aura was terrifying. However, the wooden bell spirit used softness to overcome strength. The towering ancient tree shook, and countless vines spread out like a spider web, binding the blood-red mastiff. A huge battle erupted in the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. Little did they know that this shockwave had spread to the deepest part of the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. In a hidden and dark cave, a pair of eyes slowly opened in the darkness. Has the door of the ancient gods opened again? Boom, boom, boom. Continuous air blasts and explosions resounded throughout the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. Damn it! After another attack, Tuoba Tian retreated quickly, and his bones seemed to be trembling. The way he looked at Yiguchen was no longer filled with disdain and contempt. Instead, it was replaced by a faint fear. That's right. In his eyes, Yiguchen was no longer a human, but an ancient beast in human form. Not many people, even among the barbarians who were good at refining their bodies, could possess such strength and physical strength. His moves could not cause much harm to Yiguchen. However, every time Yiguchen attacked, he would be injured. Tuoba Tian began to think of retreating. Seeing this, Yiguchen's eyes flashed, and he attacked again. In his body, the 5-colored totem power kept circulating, turning into something like a disc outside his body. It was still circling, and rich 5 elements power spread out. Of course, under the cover of the wave illusion secret skill, Tuoba Tian did not feel the 5 totem powers. However, this power was indeed the superposition of the 5 totems. It's over. Yiguchen activated the 5-colored roulette and threw it at Tuoba Tian. No! Tuoba Tian's eyes were bloodshot, and he felt a sense of danger. 3 Kings Battle Seal. Tuoba Tian roared, and the 3 supreme totems were displayed at the same time, each forming a seal. Then the 3 seals overlapped, and the power suddenly increased by 3 times. However, even so, it could not compare to the superposition of the 5 totems. When the 2 attacks collided, The 5 elemental wheel destroyed the 3 kings' battle seal as easily as crushing dry weeds. Then, without losing any momentum, it struck Tuoba Tian. Boom! There was an explosion, and Tuoba Tian's body exploded into pieces. On the other side, Blood Bone Saint and Wooden Bell Spirit were dumbfounded. A Triple Crown champion died just like that? That was too easy. Gulp. The Blood Bone Saint swallowed hard and retreated without hesitation. He wanted to run for his life. Do you think you can escape? Yiguchen took out the wings of the rosefinch and flapped them. Then, he turned into a flaming meteor and caught up with Blood Bone Saint. It didn't take long for Yiguchen to return. He looked relaxed. Wooden Bell Spirit was still in a daze. Although she no longer underestimated Yiguchen, Yiguchen's performance was still beyond her expectations. Could it be that what he said earlier about being able to deal with Tuoba Shang by himself was true? Wooden Bell Spirit couldn't help but have this thought. Almost everyone thought that Yiguchen was boasting, arrogant, and ignorant. But now, it seemed that it was not impossible. Thinking of this, the Wooden Bell Spirit could not help but respect Yiguchen. Thank you for saving me. Wooden Bell Spirit nodded. You're welcome. Let's go take a look, Yiguchen said. The two of them walked to the ravine where the light and divine splendor gathered. There were indeed countless supreme-grade elixirs. The most eye-catching thing was that 4 of the elixirs were quasi-divine elixirs. There are 4 quasi-divine elixirs. Wooden Bell Spirit's green eyes were filled with joy. Yiguchen was slightly disappointed. There were no divine elixirs here. But then again, if the Valley of 10,000 Medicine had any divine elixirs, they would have been picked long ago. On the other hand, no one could enter the tomb of the gods and demons, even though the gate of the ancient gods had been opened many times. The possibility of having divine elixirs was much higher than the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. So we can only go to the tomb of the gods and demons? Yiguchen sighed. But it wasn't that he didn't gain anything. Because Yiguchen had his eyes on one of the 4 quasi-divine elixirs. It was a lotus-like quasi-divine elixir floating in a pool of spirit chi. The lotus was called the Soul Extradition Lotus, and its quality was extremely high. It was almost at the level of a divine elixir. Moreover, the Soul Extradition Lotus was very beneficial for the cultivation of soul power. Yiguchen didn't forget that he still had to cultivate the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra. The 3rd tribulation, the soul tribulation of the Sea of Consciousness, required soul nourishment in addition to tempering the soul flame. The Soul Extradition Lotus was undoubtedly the best choice. I only want this. Yiguchen pointed at the Soul Extradition Lotus. Wooden Bell Spirit nodded slightly. The Soul Extradition Lotus was the highest quality among the 4 quasi-divine elixirs. But the other 3 were not bad either. Moreover, without Yiguchen, Wooden Bell Spirit might not even be able to keep its life, let alone obtain the divine elixir. Just as Yiguchen and Wooden Bell Spirit were about to pick the divine elixir, a sharp voice rang out. Not bad, there is such a quasi-divine elixir here. You have done well. A figure walked over slowly, swaying its hips. When Yiguchen saw this, his eyes darkened. Chapter 557. The newcomer was none other than Mu Lanfang. On Mu Lanfang's beautiful face, there was a joyful smile. Looking at the 4 quasi-divine herbs, her eyes narrowed into slits. Mu Lanfang, why are you here? The Wooden Bell Spirit was confused for a moment, then suddenly thought of something. Gritting her teeth, she said, Have you been hiding behind us? Facing the Wooden Bell Spirit's question, Mu Lanfang's expression froze. Then she said firmly, No, I just came here by chance and happened to see you. Happened to see? The Wooden Bell Spirit's face darkened as she clenched her fists. Mu Lanfang didn't come when she was surrounded by Tuoba Tian and the others. But now, Mu Lanfang happened to come when she was about to pick the quasi-divine herbs. Who would believe that? I think you've been following the Wooden Bell Spirit and even Tuoba Tian's group. You didn't appear because you weren't confident in defeating them. Now that the danger is over, you want to pick the fruits of your labor, right? Yiguchen said coldly. What? Dugubai, you can't slander me like that. Mu Lanfang's eyes flashed. She dodged slightly but still said firmly. Seeing her attitude, the wooden bell spirit completely understood. When she was surrounded, Mu Lanfang had been hiding in the dark. But because Toba Tian and the Blood-Bone Saint were powerful, Mu Lanfang had no choice. Mu Lanfang knew that even if she attacked, she wouldn't have a high chance of winning. Therefore, she kept hiding and watched as the wooden bell spirit was besieged without any intention of making a move. Mu Lanfang only showed up when Yiguchen came and finished off the enemies. The wooden bell spirit looked at Mu Lanfang with undisguised disgust and contempt. Mu Lanfang had been so arrogant before. But now, she could hide like a turtle whenever she met someone slightly more powerful. She didn't even help. She was so shameless that she dared to show up now to get a share. Mu Lanfang's face was a bit red, but she looked at the 4 quasi-divine herbs with a burning gaze. She said, "Forget it. Since we're on the same side, I only want the soul-transferring lotus and the golden caltrip fruit. You can each have one of the other 2 quasi-divine herbs." Mu Lanfang's tone was indifferent, as if she had given him a huge advantage. Mu Zhong was so angry that she laughed, and her delicate body was trembling. Yiguchen turned a blind eye to it and kept the soul extraction lotus into his origin ring. When the wooden bell spirit saw this, it also put the other 3 quasi-saint herbs into its bag. "You are." Mu Lanfang was stunned for a moment. Then, a threatening cold light shot out from her eyes. "Do you have any objections?" Yiguchen asked calmly. "Humph, the reason why you were able to enter the gate of the ancient god was because my Mulan family gave you this quota out of charity. Now, you actually don't want to repay us and want to take the opportunity for yourselves." Mu Lanfang's tone was overbearing. It was as if the wooden bell spirit and Yiguchen were unpardonable evils. Mu Zhongling was so angry that her pretty face turned green. Yiguchen smiled faintly. In the next moment he moved his feet and appeared in front of Mu Lanfang in a flash. His speed was so fast that even Mu Lanfang could not dodge in time. "What are you doing?" Mu Lanfang screamed. "Put!" A heavy slap landed on Mu Lanfang's face. Mu Lanfang's delicate body flew backward. Her pretty face was swollen like a steamed bun and a few of her teeth were broken. Mu Lanfang was stunned. She did not know what to do. She was humiliated by Yiguchen again. Looking at Mu Lanfang, who seemed to be in a daze, Yiguchen said coldly, "First of all, my quota was not given out by you. Secondly, what I gave you was your life." The word life caused Mu Lanfang's delicate body to tremble. She looked at Yiguchen with hatred, but at the same time, there was a trace of fear in her eyes. It was just as Yiguchen said. If she was not a member of the Mulan family, if it was not for Mulan and Mulanbua, if Yiguchen wanted to kill Mu Lanfang, it would be too easy. He would never be merciful to women. He did not have the pedantic idea of not killing women. Xia Yubing, Pan Shuelyan, any woman who offended him, Yiguchen would not be merciful. When Mu Lanfang was outside the 5 Elements Temple, she made everyone target him and laugh at him. This made Yiguchen want to kill her. If it was not for Mulanbua and Mulan, Yiguchen would have gotten rid of her long ago. "You better cherish the life I gave you." Yiguchen was as cold as ice. For some reason, Mu Lanfang's delicate body trembled as she looked at those indifferent eyes. Although she was unwilling, she still covered her swollen face and left in a sorry state. The wooden bell spirit was also surprised by Yiguchen's resolute methods. He had outstanding strength and a resolute personality. The wooden bell spirit felt that the young man in front of it was not an ordinary person. Moreover, this time in the door of the ancient god, fighting for the young king position. The young man in front of it might have a chance. Thinking of this, the wooden bell spirit was even more determined. It must not provoke Yiguchen. Instead, it must be on good terms with him. "This matter is over. Let's leave," the wooden bell spirit said. She actually felt a sense of security when she was with Yiguchen. At least Yiguchen would not be like Mu Lanfang, leaving her in the lurch. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Just as he was about to leave, suddenly, there was a slight fluctuation in his mind, as if someone was whispering beside him. This, Yiguchen's footsteps paused slightly, and his expression froze. What's wrong? The wooden bell spirit in front came back to her senses and asked in confusion. Wait for me here, Yiguchen said. Then, he turned around and walked toward the rugged area in the depths of the Valley of 10,000 Medicines. The wooden bell spirit was even more confused. She was from the Wood clan and had a natural affinity with the wood attribute. In the deeper part of the Valley of 10,000 Medicine, she did not sense the aura of spirit herbs, so Yiguchen naturally could not go looking for spirit herbs. On the other side, Yiguchen went into the deepest part of the Valley of 10,000 Medicine. There were no more spirit herbs here, and there were very few people. The voice in my mind should be in front. Yiguchen looked ahead. Suddenly, he found that there was a hidden cave in a green mountain wall covered by vines. Seeing this, Yiguchen carefully entered the cave. The cave was extremely dark, but the spirit energy was unexpectedly vigorous, as if there was a giant beast swallowing the spirit energy of heaven and earth here. Who made that voice? Yiguchen thought to himself as he moved forward. Moreover, that voice did not alarm the wooden bell spirit. Obviously, it was only transmitted to him. Finally, Yiguchen was about to reach the deepest part of the cave. At this time, in the darkness, a pair of bright eyes suddenly opened. Boy, come here! An old voice suddenly came out. Accompanied by a loud explosion, a giant hand condensed from true energy directly grabbed Yiguchen. This is true energy. Yiguchen's figure retreated quickly, his eyes full of surprise. The barbarians all used the power of totems and almost never cultivated true energy. However, this giant hand of true energy was obviously not the means of a barbarian powerhouse. Come here! The old woman's voice shouted again, and the giant hand of true energy directly wrapped around Yiguchen. What vigorous true energy! The hidden latch of life and death, the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth, or Yiguchen was bound by the giant hand of true energy. He frowned and blamed himself for being too careless. After Yiguchen was bound, in the darkness, the bright eyes slowly approached. In the end, the figure in the darkness was finally revealed in front of Yiguchen. Even with Yiguchen's temperament, when he saw the figure, his face could not help but freeze, and he was stunned. Chapter 558. It was easy to imagine that even someone like Yiguchen would reveal such a look of astonishment, because the one who had walked out from the darkness was a little girl. Yes, she looked like a 7 or 8-year-old girl. In fact, she was even a little younger than Shui. The little girl was petite and dainty. She was dressed in colorful muslin, and her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. Her glossy jet-black hair was tied into 2 pigtails at the back of her head. However, her large eyes seemed to contain the vicissitudes of life, and her voice was far from the crisp and clear voice of a girl her age. Instead, it was unusually old and hoarse. Most importantly, the little girl's cultivation had far exceeded Yiguchen's expectations. Divine dwelling stage. Yiguchen was all too familiar with the aura of an expert of this level. However, the little girl in front of him was only 7 or 8 years old. A 7 or 8-year-old divine dwelling stage expert? Was it possible? Even if she had started cultivating in her mother's womb, it was almost impossible. It went against common sense. If the hall masters and palace masters of the 7 great factions saw this little girl, they would be ashamed to death. Their cultivation had all been for nothing. Suspicious. Too suspicious. Yiguchen stopped struggling after being bound by the giant chi hand, and began to size up the cute little girl. I told you to come here, do you still think you can escape? The little girl laughed coldly, causing Yiguchen to feel a little creeped out. Her delicate and cute appearance, her old and hoarse voice, as well as her old-fashioned tone, when put together, seemed incomparably out of place, causing one's hair to stand on end. What, do you also think I'm a monster? The little girl raised her little face slightly, revealing an incomparably sweet smile to Yiguchen. However, that smile seemed somewhat twisted. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been frightened out of their wits. However, with Yiguchen's temperament, How could he allow himself to be flustered? I wouldn't dare. I didn't expect to see a divine-dwelling stage elder in the door of the ancient gods. Yiguchen's tone was indifferent. There wasn't the slightest bit of strangeness or fear in Yiguchen's eyes. A glint flashed across the girl's eyes. Yours truly had not expected that I would be able to see the geniuses of the 7 major factions within the door of the ancient gods. You are truly incredible. The little girl said. Senior, you know that I'm from one of the 7 major forces? Yiguchen raised his eyebrows slightly. He felt that he had concealed his aura very well. Of course, although I can sense the totem power in your body, the aura of your true energy is unable to escape my eyes, said the girl. May I know Senior's name? Yiguchen asked. Although the mysterious girl had exposed Yiguchen's identity, she didn't seem to have much killing intent in her words, so Yiguchen wasn't too afraid. This consort? I am the master of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace, 100 Flowers Child. The girl named 100 Flowers Child said. What? Yiguchen was really surprised this time. He did not expect that this little girl was the legendary mysterious palace lord of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace. The external affairs of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace had always been led by Grandma Shichuan. The palace lord of the Rhinoceros Divine Palace had not appeared for a long time. Otherwise, the Zither fairy would not have been oppressed by Grandma Shichuan. However, Yiguchen did not expect that the palace lord, who seemed to have disappeared from the world, would actually appear within the door of the ancient gods. This was somewhat inconceivable. What? You don't believe me? 100 Flowers Child's tone was slightly serious. Of course not. I'm just a little surprised. I am Yiguchen, a disciple of the Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest. Yiguchen also revealed his identity as a sign of trust. Sword Sect Ta Lin. You're a disciple of Yen Changgu, huh? But you sure are bold. You actually managed to enter the land of berserkers alone and even managed to enter the gate of the ancient gods, 100 Flowers Child said while casting a glance at Yiguchen. She had snuck into the door of the ancient gods a long time ago, and Yiguchen was a prodigy who had only recently risen to prominence. Therefore, 100 Flowers Child did not know much about Yiguchen. Senior, may I ask why you have summoned me? Yiguchen asked. 100 Flowers Child stared at Yiguchen, and the giant hand made of Zhenqi suddenly spread out. Yiguchen landed on the ground. Do you know why I am here? 100 Flowers Child asked faintly. Yiguchen was silent. 100 Flowers Child continued, To be honest, I have a special physique and suffer from a special disease. You have seen it for yourself. I look like a girl and I will never be able to grow up. I am imprisoned in this childish body. 100 Flowers Child's tone became even more serious as she spoke. Yiguchen sighed inwardly. For ordinary women, it might be a dream to forever remain young and beautiful. But if she kept the appearance of a 7- or 8-year-old girl, it would be torture, and she would not be able to fall in love with anyone. If it were anyone else who saw 100 Flowers Child, who looked so different from her age, they would most likely be shocked and call her a monster. Therefore, Yiguchen could somewhat understand 100 Flowers Child's thoughts. So I tried my best to cure my disease. Finally, I learned that there might be a sacred medicine in the door of the barbarian race's ancient gods, the reverse origin fruit. Reverse origin fruit? Yiguchen asked. Yes, the reverse origin fruit is a relatively ancient sacred medicine. It is very difficult to find, but it happens to be useful for my disease. I hid my identity and cultivation, and barely managed to sneak into the door of the ancient gods. But I did not expect that the reverse origin fruit could only be in the tomb of the gods and demons. No one in the barbarian race has been able to step into the depths of the tomb of the gods and demons, including me. If I reveal my cultivation, I will immediately be discovered by the people of the 5 Elements Temple. Therefore, I hid here, waiting for someone to enter the tomb of the gods and demons. But those juniors of the barbarian race are all clumsy and no one can enter the tomb. 100 Flowers Child said with a trace of helplessness. She could see a treasure mountain but could not enter. This feeling was quite tormenting. Senior, You want me to enter the tomb of the gods and demons and help you get the reverse origin fruit? Yi Guchen asked. In fact, he did not want to get involved in this mess. That was because Yi Guchen himself had many goals. He wanted to obtain the sacred medicine for healing and also explore the opportunities of the ancient gods. If he also wanted to help Hundred Flowers Child get the reverse origin fruit, the variables would obviously be greater. As if she saw the hesitation in Yi Guchen's eyes, Hundred Flower Child said, "Since you've snuck into the door of the ancient gods, you obviously have a request for the tomb of the fiend gods. Could it be that you've never thought about the consequences if your identity is exposed?" Yi Guchen's expression changed slightly. He did not think that Hundred Flowers Child would expose him. But if there was a big battle in the tomb of the gods and demons, the identity of Five Crown King would be exposed. At that time, if Wan Yinlan and the other elders investigated seriously, it would not be difficult to discover Yi Guchen's identity. Of course, that was the worst-case scenario. I can promise you that if you can help me get the reversal origin fruit, then I will think of a way to bring you out of the land of berserkers safely. In fact, I will even owe you a favor. If you need it in the future, I will definitely not be stingy in helping you, Granny Hundred Flowers said. The reason why she did this was because she was too eager to recover from her illness. And this time, the door of the ancient gods was undoubtedly the most likely opportunity to open the tomb of the gods and demons. If she missed it, she would continue to wait and suffer. Yi Guchen's eyes flashed. Hundred Flowers Child was the master of the Rhino Divine Palace and a divine dwelling stage expert. This favor was not small. And if he had a divine dwelling stage expert to protect him, his safety would be greatly increased. All right, I'll help you with this. Yi Guchen agreed. Chapter 559. In any case, Yi Guchen was going to enter the tomb of the fiend gods. If he could find the reverse source fruit, he could help Hundred Flowers Child. Moreover, it would only be beneficial for Yi Guchen to obtain a favor from a divine dwelling expert. Okay, I'll believe you this time. Of course, if you disobey or do anything else, don't blame me for being ruthless. Hundred Flowers Child's tone suddenly turned gloomy. An extreme killing intent shrouded Yi Guchen. It was obvious that the reverse source fruit was Hundred Flowers Child's only hope of recovery. If Yi Guchen did anything unexpected, even 10,000 deaths would not be able to extinguish her anger. For such a sweet-looking little girl to say such words in such a tone, it had to be said that there was a strange sense of incongruity. But Yi Guchen's expression remained unchanged. He nodded. Of course, my words carry enormous weight. Moreover, I have some connections with Consonant's palace. Yi Guchen casually told Hundred Flowers Child about the relationship between Zither Fairy and LV Qinghan. Oh, so you're on good terms with Zither Fairy. But I didn't expect that Zhou Tong would be so bold as to kill my disciple. Hundred Flower Child's face darkened even more as an astonishing killing intent was released. LV Qinghan was Hundred Flowers Child's proudest disciple. To think that she would be framed by Zhou Tong. This made Hundred Flowers Child furious. This was the effect Yi Guchen wanted. When he returned, he would certainly fight Zhou Tong to the death. At that time, if the three divine dwelling experts of the three imperial palaces intervened, the situation would be extremely disadvantageous. Even with the protection of Feng Manlu, Yi Guchen would find it difficult to kill Zhou Tong. But if Hundred Flowers Child was there, the situation would be tilted towards Yi Guchen's side. In that case, I have to thank you for saving my disciple. Hundred Flowers Child's tone softened. Yi Guchen's words were sincere and did not seem to be a lie. Hundred Flowers Child could tell at a glance. That won't be necessary. As long as you can protect me when I leave the door of the ancient god, that will be enough. Yi Guchen cupped his fist slightly. Hundred Flower Child nodded and said, All right, then it's settled. You can leave now. If the tomb of the gods and devils opens, I will naturally sense it and wait for you outside the tomb. Centauria Child had a special identity. Although she had concealed her aura, it was still difficult for her to enter the tomb of the gods and devils. Moreover, Hundred Flower Child knew that once the tomb of the divinity and devil opened, Wan Yinlan and the others outside the gate of the ancient god would not sit still. They would definitely come to investigate the situation inside the tomb of the divinity and devil. Therefore, 100 Flowers' child could only wait outside the tomb of the gods and devils. All right, it's a deal. Yi Guchen immediately exited the cave. Looking at Yi Guchen's departing figure, Granny 100 Flowers' beautiful face revealed a thoughtful expression. This lad's strength is really shocking. Both his genuine chi and totem have been cultivated to such a high level. I really don't know where Yen Chang'e found such a peerless genius. Yi Guchen walked out of the Valley of 1,000 Medicine and found that the wooden bell spirit was still waiting for him outside the valley. Obviously, Mu Lanfang's actions had caused the Saintess of the Wood clan to lose all confidence in the so-called Camp Alliance. On the contrary, Yi Guchen gave the wooden bell spirit a sense of security. Seeing Yi Guchen's arrival, the wooden bell spirit's green eyes glistened. She was very smart and tactful, so she did not ask any questions. "Let's leave," said the wooden bell spirit. Yi Guchen nodded slightly. To be honest, not to mention the Tuoba camp, he had even made enemies with many people in the Mulan camp. Except for the dragoness, Mu Lanyue, and a few others, almost everyone was an enemy. With the wooden bell spirit as an ally, Yi Guchen could also relieve some of the pressure. Afterward, the two left the Valley of 1,000 Medicine and continued to rush toward the depths of the tomb of the gods and devils. Inside the gate of the ancient god, the Valley of 1,000 Medicine was not the only place with opportunities. Therefore, the saints and saintesses who entered also found many opportunities. As they searched, they also headed in the direction of the tomb of the gods and devils. The deeper they went, the more Yi Guchen could feel that the demonic chi seemed to be getting denser. Where did this black demonic chi come from? It can actually make people go crazy and turn into apes, Yi Guchen murmured. In the Wood clan, there are some fragmentary records. I heard that this tomb of the gods and devils is the place where a god and a devil fell, and that god is the ancestor of the barbarian clan, said the wooden bell spirit. The place where the gods and devils fell? Yi Guchen was a little curious. The so-called god, Yi Guchen guessed, was the ancient god clan. And what did the devil refer to? This strange demonic chi is rumored to be the aura left behind by the devil. Even the gate of the ancient god and the entire 5 Elements mountain are means to suppress the devil. Of course, this is just a legend, said the wooden bell spirit. A devil suppressed by the 5 Elements mountain? Interesting. Yi Guchen nodded slightly. He knew much more about the ancient god clan than the wooden bell spirit. The ancient god clan was one of the 100 clans in the universe with an ancient heritage. And if the legend was true, then the so-called devil should be the opponent of the ancient god clan, and it could also be one of the 100 clans in the universe. Of course, Yi Guchen was confused about the 100 clans in the universe. Until now, the only clan he knew was the ancient god clan. Yi Guchen knew nothing about the other 99 clans. If it's really as I guessed, then the tomb of the gods and devils won't be peaceful. Yi Guchen frowned. To be qualified to be the opponent of the ancient god clan, the devil would naturally not be weak. The demonic chi that remained in the universe was the best proof. That's the lightning fire ancient cave. At this moment, the wooden bell spirit exclaimed in surprise. Yi Guchen came back to his senses and saw that in the horizon ahead, there was a series of red hills that were burning with flames and bursting with lightning. And in the middle of the hills, there was a black hole that looked like the mouth of a giant beast. It was daunting. The lightning fire ancient cave? Is there a mystical fire thunder hidden in it? Yi Guchen suddenly thought. Mu Lanyue seemed to have told them before. Yes, rumor has it that there are several types of mystical fire thunder in the lightning fire ancient cave, but unfortunately, they are useless to me. The wooden bell spirit sighed slightly. Mystical fire thunder naturally restrained the Wood clan, and their attributes clashed, so it was useless to the wooden bell spirit. But to Yi Guchen it was useful. Because his third calamity, the Sea of Consciousness soul calamity, required a mystical fire of heaven and earth that could burn the soul. I wonder if I can find a mystical fire of heaven and earth that can burn the soul in the lightning fire ancient cave. Yi Guchen's eyes flashed. He was looking forward to passing the sea of consciousness soul calamity. Then, he would use the ancient god technique to cultivate to the one-star ancient god realm. At that time, Yiguchen's strength would be unimaginably strong. Even an ordinary small profound martial realm expert would not be his opponent. Even if Zhou Tong obtained the life and death intent and could break through to the small profound martial realm. At that time, he would also realize how hopeless it would be for him to face Yiguchen. I want to enter the lightning fire ancient cave. Yiguchen did not hesitate. Then I'll wait for you outside. The wooden bell spirit nodded. Yiguchen nodded slightly, and his feet flashed as he entered the lightning fire ancient cave. Chapter 560. The lightning fire ancient cave was also one of the places of opportunity within the door of the ancient god. The exotic fire and lightning within it were naturally coveted. However, the fire tribe and the thunder tribe needed the exotic fire and thunder tribe the most. The fire tribe had suffered heavy losses in the ancient barren forbidden zone, and even Yen Xuanji had died. This time, no one from the fire tribe came to the door of the ancient god. As for the thunder tribe, after Yiguchen killed Lei Jiuming, Lei Jiuyo was the only one left. Yiguchen was not too afraid of Lei Jiuyo, but he would not underestimate him either. After all, he was someone who had obtained the will of life and death. Even if he had not completely stepped into the life and death threshold, he was not far away. As soon as he entered the lightning fire ancient cave, Yiguchen felt a strong burning aura, which was mixed with the explosive force of lightning, rushing toward him. It can be used to temper the body. Yiguchen's eyes lit up. Exotic fire and lightning were the best materials for tempering the body. Moreover, he had cultivated the ancient god tactics, and his body needed to be tempered. Yiguchen did not use the heavenly demon general armor to protect his body. Instead, he let it go and accepted the tempering of the flames and lightning. However, the flames and lightning outside the lightning fire ancient cave were the most ordinary ones, and the tempering effect was limited. For Yiguchen, who had exotic fire and lightning, it was not very effective. He gradually went deeper into the lightning fire ancient cave. As he went deeper, the surrounding environment became more extreme. If it were an ordinary saint or saintess, they would not be able to move without using their totem power to protect themselves. However, Yiguchen was at ease, like a fish in water, accepting the tempering. At this moment, Yiguchen suddenly stopped in his tracks. The heavenly sun Xianming fire seed in his body seemed to tremble. It was an aura that sensed the same kind and threat. Exotic fire of heaven and earth. Yiguchen did not hesitate at all, and directly entered the lightning fire ancient cave. The lightning fire ancient cave was like a beehive, and there were many caves everywhere. Most of the caves only had ordinary flames and lightning. Only in a very small number of caves would there be strange flames and strange thunders. However, relying on the senses of the heavenly sun mystic underworld fire in his body, he chose a cave and entered it. The deeper he went, the more turbulent the blazing heat became. However, the strange thing was that the blazing power didn't seem to be just burning the body. Even his soul felt as if it was being roasted. The light in Yiguchen's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Finally, at the end of the tunnel, the space suddenly widened. Within it, there was a pitch-black flame floating in midair. As the pitch-black flame churned, it emitted a faint, soul-stirring fluctuation, as if it was a will-o'-the-wisp. That's the Nirvana demonic heart flame. Yiguchen's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Yiguchen had followed the old drunkard for a while, and the old drunkard had told Yiguchen most of the types of heavenly flames and heavenly lightning. Yiguchen was not mistaken about this pitch-black flame. It was the Nirvana demonic heart flame that was rumored to be able to burn the soul and even trigger inner demons. The Nirvana demonic heart flame was ranked very high among the heavenly flames, far superior to the heavenly sun mystic underworld fire in Yiguchen's body. It was even almost on par with the old drunkard's purple emperor's heavenly fire. However, the Nirvana demonic heart flame's unique terrifying ability to burn the soul was something that even the purple emperor's heavenly fire could not compare to. As expected, A pillow is sent when I feel sleepy. Yi Guchen could not help but reveal a faint smile. He had wanted to make a trip to the fire tribe to see if he could obtain a strange flame that could burn the soul. However, he never had the chance. Now, however, there was finally a flame that could help Yi Guchen pass the soul tribulation in his sea of consciousness. However, there was a reason why the Nirvana demonic heart flame could exist in the lightning fire ancient cave for so long without being collected by anyone. It was because the Nirvana demonic heart flame was very difficult to refine. Back then, Yi Guchen had been in great danger to refine the heavenly sun mystic underworld fire. Not to mention the Nirvana demonic heart flame. If the difficulty of refining the heavenly sun mystic underworld fire was 1, then the difficulty of refining the Nirvana demonic heart flame was more than 50. These flames were not on the same level at all. In addition to the Nirvana demonic heart flame's unique ability to burn the soul, even some of the fire tribe's saints did not dare to refine it previously. Yi Guchen suddenly swept his gaze around. He suddenly discovered that there were some corpses in this space. Judging from their appearances, they were all saints and saintesses who had failed to refine the Nirvana demonic heart flame. These corpses had long been charred black, and their shapes were all distorted as if they had suffered great torture. Yi Guchen's expression was also slightly solemn. It was no wonder that the Nirvana demonic heart flame had existed here for so long and no one had been able to take it away. It was because those who had tried to refine and take it away were all dead. As its name suggested, the Nirvana demonic heart flame had a terrifying special ability. It could use its own flame to trigger the inner demons in people's hearts. This inner demon could be some kind of obsession, a person, or some kind of painful memory. All in all, inner demons were extremely terrifying. One could see some clues from these distorted corpses. Even in the future, when Yi Guchen cultivated to a higher level, he would also have to endure the test of inner demons. The path of martial arts is to go against the current. If I am afraid, how can I attain the supreme peak? Yi Guchen's eyes were filled with determination. His temperament had long since been tested. If it were anyone else, even if the fire tribe's patriarch came here and saw the Nirvana demonic heart flame, they might not necessarily dare to refine it. But Yi Guchen dared to do so, because he had not forgotten his blood feud and Gu Xiaoyang. If he wanted to defeat Gu Xiaoyang, a top heaven's pride of the South Horizon region and one of the 10 great young masters, how could he not fight? And the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra was Yi Guchen's strongest means to crush these heaven's prides of the South Horizon region. Therefore, Yi Guchen must overcome the soul tribulation of the Sea of Consciousness. He must also refine the Nirvana demonic heart flame. Let's begin. This place was quiet and empty. It was a good time to refine it. Yi Guchen slowly approached the Nirvana demonic heart flame. The Nirvana demonic heart flame also seemed to have spirituality, rolling more violently. It actually has a trace of spirituality. No wonder it is a top rare flame of heaven and earth, Yi Guchen thought to himself. At this time, in the violently rolling pitch-black flame, it gradually condensed into a terrifying human face. The human face could not speak, but it could emit a ghostly howl that made one's heart tremble, as if one's soul was about to be shattered. You have no right to resist me. You can only become my flame and be used by me. Yi Guchen's vital qi and totem power burst out with a loud bang. The power of the 2 attributes was released by Yi Guchen at the same time, directly enveloping the Nirvana demonic heart flame. The pitch-black flame suddenly seemed to be boiling, and the ghostly howl also became sharper, almost shattering the Sea of Consciousness. But Yi Guchen's Sea of Consciousness was protected by the meteorite demonic soul butterfly, so it was not affected. Nirvana demonic heart flame, let me see how difficult it is to refine you. The vital qi and totem power directly compressed the Nirvana demonic heart flame's fire seed to the size of a fist. Then, it was swallowed by Yi Guchen. Chapter 561. The moment he swallowed the fire seed, Yi Guchen's body shook violently. It was as if his body and soul had fallen to the bottom of the 18 levels of hell and suffered endless inhumane torture. Pain. Heart-wrenching pain. It was as if every bone and every blood vessel was being roasted on a metal plate. Not to mention the effect on the soul, just the physical body alone was causing extreme pain. The Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire was not as terrifying as this. Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire, come out. Yi Guchen did not hesitate to activate the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire. The Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire had long been refined by him. It surged out at this moment to counteract the terrifying temperature of the silent demon flame. However, Yi Guchen was slightly taken aback. Inside his body, the Nirvana Heart Demon Flame spread out and devoured the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire the moment it sensed the movement of the Heavenly Sun Shinming Flame. This can be devoured? Yi Guchen was a little stunned. The old drunkard had said that there were some top rare flames that were extremely spiritual and could even devour lower-level flames. However, he did not expect the silent demon flame to have such an ability. Then, the ink-black flames in Yi Guchen's body surged out in all directions and spread directly to Yi Guchen's dantian, wrapping around the fire seed of the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire. Not good. Yi Guchen's heart skipped a beat. The silent demon flame was too domineering. It wanted to devour the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire. The Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire was not like the silent demon flame. It did not have any spiritual nature and therefore could not resist being devoured. Chi-Chi, the black flames wrapped around the fire seed of the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire and were refined and devoured. The power of the silent demon flame skyrocketed the moment it devoured the fire seed. There was a loud boom. Black flames spewed out of Yi Guchen's body from the inside out. The sizzling sound of burning resounded continuously. Pain. The pain seeped into his bone marrow, as if his entire body was being roasted in a frying pan. Yi Guchen gritted his teeth again and activated the flawless Vajra body. His charred body emitted a greenish-golden divine light, making him look like a greenish-golden statue sitting cross-legged in the pitch-black flames. After that, Yi Guchen took out many top-grade elixirs, healing elixirs, and so on. He swallowed them like they were cabbages. Boundless medicinal power surged out, nourishing his charred body. Calm your mind and concentrate. Hold your vital energy and return to one. Yi Guchen sat cross-legged on the ground. Not only did Yi Guchen use the impeccable Vajra body, but he also used the ancient god tactic. His body grew again, and he was now 9 feet tall. A faint star mark appeared on his forehead, and ancient light patterns spread out on the surface of his body. The strength of his body had increased by more than 3 times. With all these blessings, Yi Guchen was still suffering from extreme pain and torment, but his body was barely able to maintain its vitality and was not directly burned to ashes. The situation fell into a stalemate. However, this kind of inhuman pain was not something that anyone could endure. Yi Guchen did not even make a sound. He gritted his teeth, and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. To obtain extraordinary power, one had to endure what ordinary people could not. This was a principle that Yi Guchen had understood long ago. The silent demonic heart flame seemed to have sensed that Yi Guchen was a tough nut to crack. Therefore, it seemed to have decided to use its best ability. Boom! The pitch-black flame directly rushed into Yi Guchen's sea of consciousness. What kind of pain was that? The sea of consciousness was like the sea of qi. It was an absolute forbidden zone for a martial artist. If these 2 places were damaged, the result would be fatal. It could even cut off one's martial path. Therefore, when Yi Guchen suppressed the Heavenly Sun Shinming Fire into his sea of qi, the old drunkard had called him a madman. Right now, the sea of consciousness was more important than the sea of qi. If the sea of qi was destroyed, he would at most become a cripple. However, if the sea of consciousness was damaged, he would at least become an idiot or a vegetable. In serious cases, he would lose his life. This was also the reason why some prodigies and experts had spiritual objects guarding their sea of consciousness. Just as the silent demonic heart flame rushed into Yi Guchen's sea of consciousness, the meteorite demon soul butterfly in the sea of consciousness seemed to have sensed the danger and directly flapped its wings. A fluorescent light shield shrouded Yi Guchen's sea of consciousness. The pitch-black flame completely enveloped the light shield. As the flame rolled, the light shield fluctuated. Obviously, Because the silent demonic heart flame was too powerful, even the meteorite demon soul butterfly could not hold on for long. Just what I want. Yiguchin closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. He directly entered a meditative state and began to operate the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra. In just a short while, the protective light shield released by the meteorite demon soul butterfly was burned to ashes by the silent demonic heart flame. Then, the terrifying pitch-black flame completely rushed into Yiguchin's sea of consciousness. What kind of pain was that? The pain of the soul was thousands of times more painful than the pain of the flesh. If it was an ordinary person, he would have fainted from the pain. However, Yiguchin gritted his teeth tightly. Blood flowed from the corners of his closed eyes. Ah! A low and hoarse voice came from Yiguchin's mouth. Yiguchin madly operated the soul power in his sea of consciousness. The meteorite demon soul butterfly leaned against the undying soul pearl to resist the burning of the pitch-black flame. Not knowing how long had passed, Yiguchin only felt that one breath was like 10,000 years. With the operation of the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra, Yiguchin also gradually adapted to the terrifying burning power. The soul power in his sea of consciousness gushed out after being burned, and then it was burned again after gushing out. In the continuous burning and refining, the area of his sea of consciousness also became bigger and bigger, and his soul power became more and more vigorous. Finally, at a certain moment, Yiguchin felt as if a shackle was broken. From his sea of consciousness, there was a cracking sound. The first minor tribulation of the soul tribulation in his sea of consciousness had been passed. However, Yiguchin did not stop, because the heart demon flame had not been refined yet. If it was an ordinary soul fire, it might only help Yiguchin pass the first minor tribulation. However, the power of the heart demon flame was far beyond ordinary rare flames. Therefore, Yiguchin wanted to pass 2 consecutive tribulations to break through to the perfect sea of consciousness. Yiguchin turned his wrist and took out the soul extradition lotus. The quality of the soul extradition lotus was close to that of a sacred medicine. It was also the most precious medicine that Yiguchin had taken apart from the 5 elements sacred fruit. Boom! Just as Yiguchin swallowed the soul extradition lotus, an unparalleled and majestic medicinal power rushed into Yiguchin's sea of consciousness. Immediately, his spiritual sea, which had been burned to an unrecognizable state by the silent heart demon flame, was once again nourished, as though it had met a good rain after a long drought. As the saying went, even if a wildfire could not burn it out, it would grow again when the spring breeze blew. After being burned by the heart demon flame, the soul power that was gathered again was far thicker and more condensed than before. It was as viscous as mercury. However, this was not enough. Yiguchin's goal was to completely pass the second minor tribulation and cultivate to the perfect sea of consciousness. Heart demon flame, refine. Yiguchin meditated again, pulled the heart demon flame into his sea of consciousness, and began to refine it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.